4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, YouTube. You could always give us a call, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. You can get at me on Instagram, where I'm always straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Stuart Kovacs and Michael Samter across the other way. And we got a lot cooking all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Coming up 20 minutes from now, this guy has done a phenomenal job to start the NFL season. Nico Collins, wide receiver for the Houston Texans, who have been a pleasant surprise this year. And then coming up at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific, we'll chat it up with the former Georgia quarterback and now college football analyst in Aaron Murray. Let's get right to it, though, with the reaction from the final game of Week 4 in the National Football League. When we take a glance at the Seattle Seahawks and the New York Football Giants, what an ass-kicking that was last night. Seattle thoroughly dominated the New York Giants, and you saw the difference between those two teams where last year the Seahawks surprised a lot of people. Last year the Giants surprised a lot of people. And going into this year, you thought there was going to be regression with the Giants. I didn't know if they were going to fall flat on their face or if they were just going to slowly fall back from the pack. Clearly, the former is that, where they are going to fall flat on their face. They're 1-3, and they're heading to 1-5 with trips coming up, going to Buffalo and also the Miami Dolphins the next 2 weeks. And you look at Seattle, week 1 was ugly. There was no doubt about it. They got just destroyed in that game up against the LA Rams. But ever since then, this has been sort of what you saw last year from the Seattle Seahawks. And the biggest difference is now that Seattle's secondary is really coming into their own with the draft picks that they've made the last 2 years, and just more and more praise is deserved to Pete Carroll and also John Schneider, the general manager. But we have to start with the Giants, because the big takeaway from the game last night is Daniel Jones is paid to be a franchise quarterback. And I know it wasn't an ideal situation last night, but you're at home. I know you don't have Andrew Thomas. I know you don't have Saquon Barkley, but you have to play better. And that line was atrocious. There were times throughout the game where you look at Daniel Jones and you go, wow, the way he runs, he kind of looks a little bit like Lamar Jackson. But then as the game does go on, you just see more and more of the same old with Daniel Jones, which when you get paid that money, you can't be putting the ball on the turf. You can't be about to get in the end zone and then just throw an ill-advised pass and get picked off when you had Darren Waller wide open and that go for a touchdown for a little house call for 6 points. Daniel Jones has been in this league too long to be making these same mistakes, and it keeps on happening over and over and over again, minus the blip of last year, which is an anomaly, where last year Daniel Jones did a good job with not a lot around him. But Daniel Jones just continues to show you more than not that he's not going to be worth that money. And it's impossible when you watch the game last night to not walk away and you feel bad about Daniel Jones, the state of the Giants, who last year, right, they were heading in the right direction. You have Brian Daboll. You have Joe Shane. Year one, they overachieved, but now they're coming back down to earth, and they made the risk this offseason, and they kind of had no choice, but they had to pay Daniel Jones, and now you are seeing someone who's paid like he's a franchise quarterback, but when you watch him throughout this year, the team is not looking like they have a franchise quarterback. And it makes me think when you look at the landscape of the NFL, because the quarterback money is absolutely ridiculous now. There are so many guys that get paid these enormous contracts. And a lot of times you're paying off potential. And potential means you haven't done it yet. You know, there are some circumstances where like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen, where you feel really good about the quarterback and you know that you have the guy and you have the right guy. But then there's other situations like Kyler Murray, where Kyler Murray had some good moments, some bad moments. I don't know if he's an elite quarterback, and Kyler Murray got the big-time contract, and I know he got hurt last year, but now he has a new coach. The GM that drafted him is out, and there's a ton of speculation, depending on where the Cardinals fall in the draft, if this is going to be the final season for Kyler Murray. And we've seen this before in the league, whether it was Carson Wentz, who got paid, ended up not being a franchise quarterback, where just because you're cashing the check, just because you get a lot of the dinero, doesn't mean that you're actually a great quarterback. And there's different levels of it. There's guys that are bad. There's guys that are average. There's guys that are very, very good. And then there's elite, great franchise quarterbacks. And when I watch Daniel Jones, more times than not, I walk away, even after being very impressed with him, with no one last year, where I just say, this guy just doesn't have it consistently, where he is going to be a great quarterback and a franchise quarterback to lead the Giants into the future. And you go around the rest of the league, and I started to wonder this last night, and I was pondering while the game was going on, how many franchise quarterbacks do we actually have in the NFL that are playing right now? Like, take Aaron Rodgers out of the conversation because Ayahuasca Aaron is currently hurt. But when you look at the guys that are actively playing in the NFL, in whatever order you want, we know the 4 best quarterbacks in the league are Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and also Joe Burrow. I know Burrow's off to a slow start. I know the Bengals, their offense has been anemic through the first 4 games of the season and very lethargic, but Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow has been to an AFC Championship game, and it's tough to just simply gloss over the fact that right now he's not 100%. But right out of the gate, when we're trying to evaluate how many franchise quarterbacks there are in the NFL, there's no doubt about it. Mahomes, Hurts, Allen, and Burrow are all 4 guys that got paid, and you have the actual belief and you know that those are guys that are your franchise. They elevate your franchise, and they are the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Outside of that, though, and this may be controversial, I think there's only 2 other guys that are slam dunk franchise quarterbacks right now. Lamar Jackson is a franchise quarterback. The biggest question with him, though, is can he stay healthy? But we've seen Lamar Jackson win a unanimous NFL MVP. Lamar is a franchise quarterback who also hasn't been put in the best position to succeed. Because that's a big thing when you have a young quarterback. Can you develop the quarterback the right way? Can you surround him with the proper offensive line? Can you surround him with the right run game and the right receivers in the passing game? And up until this year, the Baltimore Ravens have done a bad job surrounding Lamar Jackson outside of Mark Andrews, the tight end, with these elite wide receivers or tight ends. And Odell Beckham has been banged up. Zay Flowers is a rookie. Rashad Bateman, unfortunately, his first 2 years hasn't been able to stay healthy. And look what Lamar has been able to do with the Ravens consistently getting into the playoffs. And in Lamar's first true season as a starter, he did win a unanimous MVP. So I catapult Lamar into the franchise quarterback conversation. And the other name, to wrap it up to make it 6, is Justin Herbert. And I know some people are going to say, Zach, but what has he won? What has he won? And he hasn't been in the league that long. And Justin Herbert's stats have been phenomenal. And I know he has a good situation in terms of Keenan Allen. I know Mike Williams is out for the year. You have Austin Eckler as well. But I can't say that Justin Herbert has received the best coaching. Brandon Staley is a bad football coach. And he's lucky the last 2 weeks to get 2 wins with the idiotic decisions to go for it. 4th and 1 on his own 24 when he's up by 4, and then 4th and 1 at his own 34 when he's up by 7. But Justin Herbert has all the makings of a franchise quarterback, and he's eerily similar to Phillip Rivers, where you know he's going to go to a bunch of Pro Bowls. You know he's going to have these gaudy stats and these prodigious stats, but can Justin Herbert find a way to win the big game and be clutch, which unfortunately for Phillip Rivers, he wasn't. But outside of those 6 quarterbacks, Mahomes, Hurts, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, and Lamar, out of the guys that are currently playing right now, I can't say that the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL are slam dunk franchise quarterbacks. So let me be clear with 2 guys. Trevor Lawrence is on his way. Trevor Lawrence in year 1 had a disastrous situation with Urban Meyer being his head football coach. But last year, he got him to the second round of the playoffs when he actually had competent coaching in Doug Peterson. I don't like, though, what I'm seeing early on from the Jaguars this year, where they could have sent a big statement going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they couldn't even get into the end zone. It was all 3 Brandon McManus field goals in that game. I ultimately believe that Lawrence will be a franchise quarterback and he'll be the quarterback that he was hyped up to be, but I'm not ready after one really good year to say, okay, he's automatically in a lock of a franchise quarterback situation. The other quarterback that's on his way is Tua Tagovailoa. And Tua has to stay healthy, but you see what Tua can do when he does stay healthy. I know it didn't go his way up in Buffalo in Orchard Park against the Buffalo Bills, but Tua Tagovailoa has made some throws this year that are absolutely right on point and are like the definition of surgical. But then after that, when you just throw some names out there, I would say Matthew Stafford is a franchise quarterback, but I'm looking more so at the future. I don't know how much longer Matthew Stafford's going to play because the entire Rams organization, it feels as if they have 1 foot in, 1 foot out in terms of how much longer they want to be with the Rams, with their coach, with Aaron Donald, and also Matthew Stafford as well. I think Stafford is a really good quarterback, clearly a quarterback that could win a Super Bowl. We saw him do it 2 years ago and make clutch throw after clutch throw in the fourth quarter in those playoff games. But I just don't know how much more of a window Matthew Stafford has of franchise quarterback caliber play. The other guys, and I can hear the cockroach Cowboy fans now, why isn't Dak Prescott a franchise quarterback? Because when Dak Prescott has the ball in the final 2 minutes of a big game, I just don't believe in him. I think Dak is the definition of a very, very good quarterback, but not a great quarterback. And the last 2 years, those were winnable games up against an elite team in the 49ers who did not have elite quarterback play in Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. And Dak couldn't get the snap off 2 years ago. And last year, with this defense playing championship ball, he couldn't find a way to get the ball in the end zone, and he put the ball on the turf, and he threw the ball to the other team. So Dak is one of those guys that's just really good, but wouldn't be someone, in my definition of a franchise quarterback, where I would say, okay, Dak is an automatic lock for a franchise quarterback in the NFL. Kirk Cousins, very similar. Good quarterback. I like Dak more than Kirk Cousins. You know Kirk Cousins is always going to have big-time stats, but push come to shove week in and week out, when you get later into the season, you just don't trust Kirk Cousins. Jared Goff, another similar guy that has been to a Super Bowl. He has been solid. There's inconsistencies with Jared Goff. Sometimes he looks like he could be the guy, and then other times you're like, okay, I've seen enough. I think Goff is more of a good quarterback rather than a great quarterback being a franchise QB in this league. And the other 2 guys that I'll bring up here, that if you would have asked me this 3 years ago, and if I didn't put these guys on my list, you'd be like, Zach, what are you smoking? What are your eyes watching each and every Sunday? But I got to see more out of Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson right now is playing himself out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And for Deshaun Watson, I just don't see the old Deshaun Watson that we saw in Houston, where I look at him week in and week out and said, wow, that's a top 7 quarterback in the NFL. And that's just not my sentiment. I talked to Pro Football Hall of Famer Kurt Warner 2 weeks ago, and he said he's really concerned with Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, and they're just not seeing the field well. So I can't call either of them a franchise QB right now. And then other guys, it's still too early, like Brock Purdy. I think it's more of a product of the system, even though that's not a knock on Brock Purdy. But I don't know how great Brock Purdy is, but he is in an ideal situation, and he's taking advantage of his situation. And even though I like what I'm seeing so far from C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, we'll see what happens with Jordan Love and Bryce Young. A few games really into their careers as the starting quarterbacks, it's way too early to tell. So right now in the NFL, how many locked franchise quarterbacks are there? Clearly Daniel Jones is not one of them, and we saw that last night. But I think there's only 6 that are actively playing. And that's Mahomes, that's Hurts, that's Josh Allen, that's Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and then also Lamar Jackson. Who is a lock of a franchise quarterback in the NFL? How many are there? Right now, I'm only saying it's 6. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, great story this year in the NFL. The success of the Houston Texans. Their star wide receiver, fresh off a 150-plus yard performance and 2 touchdowns. Nico Collins will join us on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. How about the Houston Texans? They're 2-2. to start off the season after back-to-back monster victories up against the Jaguars and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Nico Collins, who I remember talking to right before the NFL draft, has really done an unbelievable job here in year number 3 in the NFL. Has 22 receptions for 428 yards and 3 touchdowns on the year. And he's coming off a great performance in that 30-6 victory up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he had 7 catches for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Texans wide receiver, Nico Collins, kind enough to join us right now. Yep. Nico, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
I'm good, Zach. How you doing, man? I appreciate having me, man.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and you're off to this incredible start. That Steelers defense is really good, but you guys put up a lot of points on them. Why were you guys able to have such a good performance up against that stout Steelers defense?
Man, we knew just coming to the game what type of team the Steelers is going to be, man. But I feel like it came down to just preparation, throughout the week, just fixing the details from the previous week, our previous game we had, man. And I feel like it just came down to just going out there and just having fun, man, just competing and enjoying the moment, man. And we came out with the big victory, man, for the city, and it was big time.
Your quarterback has impressed a lot of people in C.J. Stroud. How do you describe playing with him as QB1 the last 4 games?
Yeah, man, C.J., he's a dog, man. We already knew, when we picked him, man, what type of guy we was getting. Man, the dude's a dog, and you could just tell just the way he just carried himself, every single day, man. It's the reason why he's a captain, and it's only gonna get better, every single day, man. He just carried himself with a chip on his shoulder, man, and willing to work and willing to improve everybody around him.
What do you think the ceiling of him could be? Because when he plays his way through the first 4 games, it catches a lot of eyeballs, and people go, man, this guy's really looking good.
Yeah, man, the ceiling's high for him, man. I feel like there's no ceiling for him, man. Like, it's scary how good he can be, man. You could just tell just being around him every day, just like he's willing to improve on his game, like, so much. And it shows on Sundays, man. Just he puts in the extra work with us, man, after practice, just little reps, we didn't get or didn't make in practice, we'll stay after to get those reps in, man. And when game time comes on Sundays, man, he's just balling. He's not even thinking about it, man. Just going out and just doing what he loves, man. Sure.
Nico Collins here with us. You always know a quarterback has their guy. You look like you're the guy for C.J. Stroud. Take me a little bit behind the scenes why you guys have been able to blend so well together, and it seems like it's been really a seamless transition for both of you guys, and you really hit it off.
Yeah, man. I just feel like, man, it came down to when when we first picked him up, when he first drafted CJ, man, and just when it's the first day he just stepped in the building, man, you could tell he had that it factor with him, that he's willing to change his whole program, man, and we just been grinding this entire OTAs, man, just me, the receivers, the tight ends, man, just making sure we're getting that chemistry down pat, man, and we've been working hard in OTAs, camp, and a little bit during the little time break we had, man, just so we can get that bond together, man, so we can go out and just ball out, on Sundays without even thinking.
I'll tell you, though, when we get into Thanksgiving weekend, things get a little heated in that locker room with the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
That's going to be a fun one. Nico Collins here with us from the Houston Texans, off to a great start. Through the first 4 games, for you individually, like you've already surpassed your stats in an individual season from the prior 2 years, just what has, for you, this been like where we've seen so much success for you and you getting a lot of national praise and national attention?
Yeah, man, I just feel like, man, first I'm blessed, just to be in this position and to have success on the field as well, man. But I feel like for me, man, I'm just continuing to chase my small details. I feel like I need to improve on, man, and just, continue to work on my craft, just continue to critique myself about small things, because I feel like there's always room for improvement in your game no matter what, So I feel like I'm just trying to attack details, every single day, and just having fun, man, playing football. I've been playing this sport your whole life, so I feel like it's just, again, it's just football at the end of the day, man, just having fun with it, So I just feel like, man, I'm just thanking God every day for everything, man, and just taking advantage of every opportunity I have.
When Nico Collins is at his best, what does that look like? What type of wide receiver are you?
Man, I feel like I could be unstoppable, man. I feel like I could be one of the best, man. But it come down to, I feel like just being healthy and being available for the team, man, and just taking care of your body on and off the field, man, and just being, the right guy, having the right mindset, man, and you just gotta have that dog mentality. It's just every time you step on the field, man, you gotta have that killer mindset, man, and just go out and just ball out, man. And I feel like my main thing is gotta continue to stay healthy, continue to trust the process, and just keep building, keep growing.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Who are your top 5 receivers in the NFL? Just wondering.
Oh, my top 5? Top 5? Yeah, I'd say Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald. Who else? Calvin Johnson for sure.
And you got to have Jerry Rice in there, right?
You got to have Jerry Rice in there and Randy Moss. I don't know. It's kind of it's hard. No, I got Randy Moss probably my top 2.
Well, when we look at the current day wide receiver, just wondering, like, who are the guys that you look around the league, and I don't want to say you model your game after, but that you really respect?
Respect? Oh, man, I respect a lot of receivers, man. Well, most definitely Mike Evans. Because I just feel like I've been watching him since 2014, and then when he was at Texans A&M, I feel like that's one dude I kind of got the same body type, same game almost, man. So I feel like that's one dude I still watch to this day. Still study him, watch him how he get open, use his hands. Him, DeAndre Hopkins, man, just those type guys, man, that have like great success, has been successful in the league. Those guys I just still look up to. Still watch, study film on. Just trying to monitor my game after them and just make plays. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like them still dudes I still watch to this day.
Wrapping up with Nico Collins, who's having a breakout season for the Houston Texans. Take me inside that locker room and give me a little feel of what type of coach DeMeco Ryans is.
Man, DeMeco, man, I feel like he's a player's coach, man. He's a guy that has been there, that's sat in our seats before, that's been through the things we're going through currently. So I feel like that's a person that can relate, man. And he's a coach you will leave it all out there for, man. You can tell his passion. He's willing to make sure you go out there and succeed, man, and just have fun at the end of the day. He wants you grinding, throughout the week. So Sunday, man, it's easy. You're not even thinking about it. You're chasing the small details, throughout the week, man. That's one thing he just harp on, man, and just finish. Just having a dog mentality about you just every day, just when you step between the lines, man. And I feel like then the team, we picking up that and we feeding off for the energy from each other, man, and just going out there and just having fun, and I feel that's the main thing. He's just preaching with us, man, just having fun and being there and having each other back, for sure.
In the NFL, it could change really quickly. You guys are 2-2. A lot of people are now paying attention to the Texans. Do you feel like this could be a playoff team this season, Nico?
Yeah, most definitely. But I feel like, man, it's nothing's guaranteed in the league, man. I feel like it's going to come down to being consistent every single week, man, and chasing those details. I feel like you can't get comfortable in the league, man, and because anything can happen, So I just feel like for us, man, we just chasing details every single week and just going out every single Sunday, man, just not knowing what come out would be, not knowing would that be your last game or not. You never know, So I just feel like we're going out there with that edge and just going out to compete, and just prove people why, that we can compete, with the best too as well, So I feel like, man, the sky's the limit for this entire team, and man, I'm just excited, to see what the future holds.
Last thing I'll ask you: this Sunday, you guys go up against the Atlanta Falcons. When you take a look at them and you see them on film, what are the things that stand out to you about their defense so far?
Man, yeah, their defense, man, they're solid defense, man, solid secondary, man. Solid corners, safeties, linebackers. It's playmakers all over the field, man. Offense as well, man. It's like I said, I feel like you can't go into another week, thinking things gonna go smooth because you just never know. I feel like you gotta be prepared every week, man. Atlanta just coming back from London, off a loss from the Jazz, man. But so they coming in with a mindset, trying to win this week. So I just feel like for us, man, we gotta continue to trust our details and continue to grind out, man, and just have fun, this week.
Well, it's been fun to see the start that you're off to, also the team as well. Always appreciate you when you join us, and good luck the rest of the way.
I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you so much, Zach.
There you go. Nico Collins with us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And that's been such a fun story to start this NFL season, because the Texans, they were in a situation where they had no clue what to do with the whole Deshaun Watson situation. When were you going to be allowed to move on from him? When would he be attracted to another team so you could get a bunch of draft picks back? And they've capitalized on those draft picks, and they were in a wait-in period where you had two coaches that everyone knew were not the long-term answers with David Culley and Lovie Smith. And then this offseason, they really start to say, okay, now we're going to advance the organization forward with Caserio finally calling his shot, getting D'Amico Ryans, having him come back to the Texans and be the head coach, and then making the two big moves with C.J. Stroud and then also Will Anderson Jr. And this has been a team the last 2 weeks. Those are two just phenomenal victories. Taking the Jaguars to work, beating them by 20 points, 37-17, and then taking care of business against the Steelers this past week, just destroying them 30-6. And look at Nico Collins, 22 receptions for 428 yards and 3 touchdowns. All righty, we'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, we'll do a little hot seat ranking. Who are the 5 coaches that seats are the warmest right now in the NFL through the first 4 weeks of the season? But first, standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes bundling easy and affordable. Get a multi-policy discount by combining your motorcycle, RV, boat, ATV, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com. The first of 4 wild card games is underway in Tampa Bay, where the Rangers lead the Rays 1-0 in the second on a sacrifice fly by Josh Young. The Blue Jays and Twins get underway at the top of the hour in Minnesota. The 2 games in the National League take place tonight. The Diamondbacks meet the Phillies. Arizona had 2 terrific aces this year in Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, but Torey Lovello's Game 1 starters, rookie Brendan Pfaadt.
It's probably the growth that he's shown and the toughness that he's shown. With each time we sent him down, accepting of what his responsibility was to help us come back and win a baseball game, it never stopped.
Former Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burns starts for the Diamondbacks, and the Marlins will meet the Phillies. The Patriots' Matthew Judon will have surgery on his torn bicep and miss at least 2 months, while the Steelers' Kenny Pickett has a bruised knee and will practice tomorrow. The team will then determine his availability for this Sunday. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube, and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Your show is amazing. I hadn't been listening to sports radio for a while, and then I just caught your show, and I've been listening to sports radio on and off for about 30 years. I mean, and you're what the airwaves need, and you sound versatile too. You sound like you'd be a great Monday Night Football host
On CBS Sports Radio.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is Chargers linebacker Khalil Mack in Sunday's 24-17 win over the Raiders, where he haunted Stu Kovacs. Mack sacked Aiden O'Connell 6 times in the game, had 2 forced fumbles, and racked up 10 total tackles. Since the Raiders traded him to Chicago in 2018, Mack has 10 sacks in 5 games against his former team. And I did see this video, and I think fan behavior at football games is just starting to get out of control. And I know you could say, oh, well, it's always been out of control. And probably a big factor into it now is we just get to see a lot more than what we did years ago with how prevalent social media is. And everyone kind of becomes a Twitter tough guy. And then when you get into a real situation with alcohol flowing and things like that during the course of the game, people just become really stupid. And maybe the way that they act on social media then starts to translate into the way that they're going to act in person. But I've always said this, and I love going to games, but when you have an obnoxious crowd or you have obnoxious fans, it just ruins the experience. And I'm almost surprised where not the fighting, because that stuff, it's just disgusting and it shouldn't happen. And you get into all these dopey debates. Like when the whole Deebo Samuel thing happened, I did an interview on The Game, one of our Odyssey stations in the Bay Area. And they're like, oh, well, those Eagles fans are animals. And I go, guys, you have just as many fights in San Francisco. And we've seen that throughout the year. So it becomes these old notions and these old, like, kind of thoughts where, oh, this fan base is a bunch of savages and that's where you expect to get beat up. If you go to a game and you try to fight someone, you're really a loser. Like, there's no other way around this. You're an idiot. Like, ultimately, you got to wake up the next day and be accountable for your actions. And I've been to other buildings before wearing an opponent's jersey, and you got people drunk as a skunk, like, run up to you and get in your face, and they're like, oh, you suck, you mother bleeper, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just ridiculous. And it's over a football game. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm passionate about my teams. I want to see my teams win. But I could never understand why another individual would try to harm somebody else at a game. So with what I'm about to say, it isn't at the level of the way that I just built it up. But I did see a bunch of Raiders fans saw Mark Davis over the weekend, as Mark Davis, I don't know if he was like on the outside of a luxury box, but he's on like an elevated kind of perch where he's seating, and those fans are just harassing Mark Davis. And I get it, right? When you're the owner of that team and you have all that money, sometimes you just got to take it and you got to ignore it. But imagine being a fan of a team and go and seeing the owner of that team and just yelling at him about the coach and Josh McDaniels. Like, I get it if you want to say one time, fire McDaniels, the dude's a bum, the guy's not a great football coach, sure. But just to continue it over and over and over again, like, who acts that way? And I know we have fun on this show. I know that, we'll go on rants that sometimes you go, wow, Gelb's really getting worked up about this person or this topic. But to do it like in person, when it's the owner of the team, like, I do appreciate if you want to ask like a difficult question or if you want to bring something up and voice your opinion, but there's a proper way to do it. And these dopey Raiders fans, and I get why they're upset. Josh McDaniels isn't a good coach. We all know that. He had idiotic decisions this past weekend, like when the other dopey coach, Brandon Staley, gives you a situation, and on 1st and goal, you go, oh, we're not going to run the football with Josh McDaniels. We're going to throw it, or with Josh Jacobs, we're going to throw the ball here with Aiden O'Connell. I get why you're upset. But Mark Davis, then, is having these fans yell at him over and over and over again, and he tells the fans to smarten up. Now, I saw that video this weekend. And then today I saw some article, and the headline was, the owner of the Raiders tells their fans to smarten up when fans are calling for the coach to get fired. And when that article, right, hits today on Tuesday, I thought that Mark Davis was dumb enough to like hold a press conference today and say, oh, all the fans that are going after Josh McDaniels, it's uncalled for, and Josh McDaniels is a good football coach, and you guys need to smarten up. And at first, I was ready to be livid. I was ready to have an outburst. I was ready to be kind of like those fans that I was just talking about and call Mark Davis every name in the book. But then Samter shows me the audio of it and plays me the audio of it before the show. And I go, they're basically quoting him from the interaction that he had with fans when fans were acting like a bunch of savages, yelling at him and demanding for him to fire Josh McDaniels. And he says, smarten up. Like, I don't know if that smarten up was necessarily, oh, Josh McDaniels is a great coach. It was the way that the fans were behaving and interacting. And there's a lot of times, right, in our job, and I get it, it's a public job, I'm going to have people that jump into my Facebook messages or slide into my Instagram DMs, and they say a bunch of ridiculous things. But you can't really let that affect you. But it's one thing for it to happen online. But then to see the owner of your team and operate that way, usually you don't see that in person, and it was caught on video. But I thought the way that it was portrayed today on Tuesday when I saw these articles, I thought for sure that this was Mark Davis doing an impromptu media call to defend his coach in Josh McDaniels. And I'm like, even Mark Davis can't be that stupid with the way that he runs the team and be that tone deaf. So, Stu, let me just ask you this, because you're a big Raiders fan, and I know you don't like Josh McDaniels. I don't blame you, because the guy is a bad football coach. If you saw Mark Davis at a football game, is sweet Stuart Kovacs yelling at Mark Davis, "Hey, you bum Mark Davis with that haircut! You gotta fire McDaniels!" Or are you just trying to have a conversation and nicely say, "Mark, I love you. I love the Raiders, but this coach is just not the guy"? How would you approach it if Mark Davis was sitting right next to you right now and you wanted your opinion to be heard?
It's definitely the latter. I wouldn't torture the guy or, go at him. I might not even bring up McDaniels. It's one of those things where I've rooted for the team my whole life. It can be cool to meet the owner, even if, some of the decisions I think he makes sometimes are a little out there in terms of hires and constantly firing people. I think he gets that from his dad, obviously. But yeah, I wouldn't go at him. To be honest with you, I
would ask him if a PowerPoint presentation is maybe coming, and then we could have the status of Josh McDaniels be solidified and sealed and delivered, and he'd be donezo as the head football coach. Samter, you're pretty close with Mark Davis, if memory serves me right. I remember when we went to Vegas as a CBS Sports Radio Network for the draft, I saw Samter hanging with Mark Davis in the lobby. So when is Mark Davis joining us so we could yell at him about the state of his football team?
I'm not saying that we're best friends, but I'm also not saying that we're not best friends, right, Rick? We really
wink,
hit it
wink,
off.
nudge, nudge.
Yeah. He gave me his barber, and it's really worked wonders for me. But
you guys have a similar haircut?
Yeah. What surprised me also was that where Mark Davis was sitting in the suite, he was front row, right in the aisle where the fans walk. That takes some chutzpah to sit right there. Some chutzpah.
Some cojones, or as Ross Tucker would call them, cajones.
Yeah, the cajones, because the J is a hard J. It's a very hard J. But I was surprised that he was sitting right there, right in the firing line of the fans. And listen, the headline was definitely misleading, but there's no question that Josh McDaniels is making some really terrible decisions and really dumb moves. And it really feels to me that between what happened with the Colts and what happened with the Broncos and now here with the Raiders, there's just something about Josh McDaniels just not being a leader and not being the guy who could be the head coach of a team.
Well, I think you see it with a lot of Belichick assistants. They try to be Bill Belichick where it's my way or the highway. And that's something when Belichick does it, because he could show up to an event with all the rings on his fingers and everyone knows what he's accomplished in this league. Josh McDaniels on his own has been a disaster. And I think you need to learn how to adapt, and you could take some things from Belichick, but you can't try to recreate Bill Belichick. And I think we've seen that with guys like Charlie Weiss and Eric Mangini, and you go through all the names. Bill O'Brien had success where his team was in the playoffs a bunch, but then he wanted all the power, couldn't work with the general manager, then got the power, ran DeAndre Hopkins out of town, and the whole situation was a mess. Because it's weird. You would think coaches have people skills, but a lot of these coaches have bad people skills. And being the 1985 drill sergeant coach, when you're dealing with grown men that have a lot of money and more money than you in the year of 2023, just doesn't work. And for McDaniels, I always try to use common sense. He has clearly put Josh Jacobs in the doghouse. That's why Josh Jacobs didn't get the ball, 1st and goal at the 3. You look at other decisions as well. I don't know what Hunter Renfrow did, but clearly McDaniels, who you would think with how many receivers, similarly to Hunter Renfrow that he produced in New England, you would think that they would hit it off, but that hasn't been the case. And I think McDaniels is very moody, and once you get in his doghouse, you really have to scratch and claw to get out of it. And a lot of players just probably say it isn't worth it. So when you get rid of Carr, I was fine with that. But when you get rid of Derek Carr and you go to Jimmy Garoppolo, who I can't even say is definitely better than Derek Carr, it's going to make a lot of people question you in the organization when you already weren't popular. So with that being said, after the whole spiel about fan behavior and all that stuff with the Raiders that's going on right now, let's get to some hot seat rankings. I think these are the 5 coaches in the NFL right now whose seats are the warmest, and will go from I don't want to say that any seats are cool, but the seats that are a little bit cooler and at 5 to the seats that are hottest in at 1. In at number 5, it's Kevin Stefanski. I know the Browns haven't been horrible, but they've been inconsistent. The AFC isn't as strong as what we thought it was going to be. But I've seen this story too many times, even with losing Nick Chubb. You have a quarterback that's under a lot of pressure and is under fire with the money that he's paid, and deservedly so. If we don't start to see Deshaun Watson get back to close of a resemblance of a great quarterback, everyone's going to point the finger at Deshaun Watson and be like, well, what the heck's going on with Deshaun Watson? The thing is, though, they're not going to move on from Deshaun Watson because of all the picks that they gave up for him and the guaranteed contract. So when Deshaun starts to feel that heat, he is then going to throw the coach under the bus behind the scenes, and they will get rid of the coach before the quarterback. If the Browns don't make the playoffs this year, I think Kevin Stefanski is gone. In at number 4, it's Dennis Allen. I don't think Dennis Allen is a good coach. Talking about the Raiders, we've seen him coach before. But with the Saints team, it's really tough for Dennis Allen to win this year. And I don't believe that they're going to win this division. But if you don't win this division, I don't get how you could justify bringing Dennis Allen back. And through the first few weeks of the season, I do believe Tampa Bay is better than the Saints. And I also believe the Atlanta Falcons are better than the New Orleans Saints. In at number 3, I thought about bumping this guy up a little bit higher, but I'm not going to do so because I just don't believe that Mark Davis is going to fire him with how much money they had to pay in the aftermath of the John Gruden situation. McDaniel's seat should be warm. I just don't know, with David Ziegler being his BFF, running the team as well, and how close he is with Mark Davis, and also Tom Brady coming in to be the minority owner of the team eventually, and McDaniels is a Brady guy, if they're going to get rid of Josh McDaniels this year. Like, it could look really ugly for the Raiders this year, and it will continue to look really ugly. I still don't know if they're going to pull the trigger, though, on Josh McDaniels and get rid of him. In at number 2, it's Brandon Staley, is the luckiest coach in the NFL with the 2 idiotic decisions he made the last 2 weeks, going for it on 4th and 1 when he's backed up on inside his own 35-yard line. If the Chargers don't elevate themselves from just being a playoff team this year, which who knows if they're going to make the playoffs, and then maybe winning a playoff game or 2, they should get rid of him because they have too much talent to be going through these seesaw ride games and these roller coaster emotion ride of games each and every week. And I keep on thinking they're winning in spite of the coach. And we saw that the last 2 weeks where the coach basically gifted Kirk Cousins and Aiden O'Connell touchdowns, and both those quarterbacks ended up making mistakes and throwing interceptions. And in at number 1, it is Matt Eberflus. The Bears are going nowhere besides getting the first and maybe second pick in the NFL draft. And with how ugly it's been with the relationship with Justin Fields, and I know that they're probably going to move on from Justin Fields at the end of the year, you're basically in the reset phase if you're getting the first and second pick, and I would not hitch my wagon to Matt Eberflus. So those are my 5 coaches that I think are in danger of losing their jobs right now and how we rank the hot seat 1 through 5. We'll come on back. We'll get into some comments from Jerry Jones that you don't want to miss, and also who are the top 5 teams in the NFC. Jump on board, 855-212-4CBS. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. You can find us so many ways on Sirius XM, channel 158, maybe your great local CBS Sports Radio affiliate. Also on the free Odyssey app. And make sure you jump on board on YouTube as well. And I love the YouTube chat, let me tell you. I know I've adopted now the Weedos and the Purple Drankers, as they called them from the Maggie and Perloff show, and still do with them moving over to 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. But enjoy the conversations in the chat. And if you want to hit me up on social media, I'm always here, Twitter and Instagram, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We'll do a little college football today, coming up in about an hour 20 from now, as former Georgia quarterback Aaron Murray is going to join us. He's all over the place, works for Sirius XM, ESPN, and also the Volume, and is very good on the air. So got some college football thoughts for Aaron Murray coming up later today in about an hour 20 from now. I want to hear a little Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones does like 7,000 interviews on 105.3 The Fan. I believe that he is the best interview hit that is a weekly in football season with all the content that he does give. I feel like whenever Jerry Jones opens his mouth, whether it's on Sean and RJ or any of the shows on 105.3 The Fan, it always winds up making big news because you never know what Jerry Jones is going to say. And as Jerry Jones has gotten a little bit older, you almost need a Jerry Jones translator because there's sometimes when you're listening to Jerry Jones and you go, huh? Is this like my crazy uncle talking? Like, what the heck is this guy trying to say? What did Maggie and Perloff do with Aaron Rodgers? Like, what the bleep is Aaron Rodgers talking about today? I almost want to say sometimes, what the bleep is Jerry Jones actually trying to say? So I have not heard this audio yet. So I don't know if it is crazy Jerry Jones or if it's somewhat normal Jerry Jones. We'll get to it in just a bit. But I will never forget when the whole Dak Prescott situation happened with the contract that they made him wait. He talked about how when you're in the forest and you slice your hand open in order to repair the cut, sometimes you use your liberal arts degree and your bachelor degree compared to your master's degree to sew back up the hand. And I was trying to translate that, and I go, maybe he was saying what you're a master in and what you got your extra degree in and what your big focus is in the world isn't the skills that you need to sometimes try to fix a situation. And maybe it was a minor detail that you learned when you were an undergrad. That was my best stab at it a few years ago. But there's been a lot of times where Jerry Jones speaks and I just don't have a damn clue what he's trying to say. So I think he was clear and concise, I believe, with the way that Samter set it up for me before the show. But let's listen up. This is Jerry Jones on 105.3 The Fan with Sean and RJ talking about the matchup this weekend. Big game on Sunday Night Football. Bum, bum, ba-da-bum, bum, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-bum, between the Cowboys and the 49ers.
They are right now probably the most likely team to go in the Super Bowl. And but in order for them to get there, they've got to go by us. But the bottom line is that you're playing the best. You don't need the game to tell you that you're playing the best, but you need the game to show you how you stack up against the best.
Out of all the quotes that I've heard from Jerry Jones throughout the last 2 to 3 years, that was actually the most sensible quote from Jerry Jones. He's 100% right. Well, kind of 100% right. In terms of he's playing into how big of a game this is. He knows the Cowboys right now on paper are a top 3 team in the NFC. And when you're blowing out the Giants, when you're blowing out the Jets, when you're blowing out the Patriots, it's tough for me to really say, oh, the Cowboys are definitely better than where they were a year ago. Because the Cowboys the last 2 years have been a really good football team in the regular season. They've won back-to-back years of 12 games. And then come playoff time against the 49ers, this team didn't get the job done, and their quarterback failed them on the biggest stage. So now you're going up against the 49ers, and it's a wonderful litmus test game for us to try to see, are the Cowboys actually different this year compared to the Cowboys the last 2 years? The only thing that I'll take a little issue with when it comes to Jerry Jones is I don't see how you could definitely say that the 49ers are better than the Eagles right now. Because he basically said it. Right now, if you look at the NFC, the team most likely to go to the Super Bowl is the 49ers. How? The Eagles haven't taken a step back. They still have Jalen Hurts. They have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith, skinny Batman as they call him in Philadelphia. You have Dallas Goedert, maybe the best offensive line in football. And you have a defense that's deep. And oh, yeah, by the way, this is an Eagles team. And I know the 49ers fan is going to tell me, oh, we lost Brock Purdy. That's fair. But last year, when I watched the Super Bowl and I was at the Super Bowl, I watched the Philadelphia Eagles, not the San Francisco 49ers. Now, later in the season, the Eagles will welcome the 49ers back to South Philadelphia. And that's going to be maybe the biggest game of the NFL regular season, especially with how nasty it's been between those two fan bases in the Eagles and the 49ers. But I do understand where the Eagles are your rival if you're the Cowboys inside the NFC East and you're going up against the 49ers. Maybe that's why Jerry Jones this week elected to say, yeah, they're probably the team that's going to go to the Super Bowl, take a little friendly shot at the Eagles, and also send the message to your team, this is a big test. And this is the first time where if the Cowboys want to shut me up, where there's a reason why I call the Cowboys the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, where they haven't been to an NFC title game since 1995. They haven't won a Super Bowl since 1995. This could send a big message to the NFL that the Cowboys are for real this year. Because I look at the Cowboys as a team that they have a championship defense, but I don't trust their quarterback in the big moments. And you examine Dallas, I do believe there's a separation where the Eagles and the 49ers are like kind of neck and neck, but they're up here. And then it's the Cowboys that are below them. There is that separation. Now, you don't win a Super Bowl this week. You don't win an NFC title game this week. But the Cowboys, without even fully examining the rest of the slate, they have the most to prove this week. Because the Dallas Cowboys, if they lose to the 49ers, we're going to look at them and say, oh, the Cowboys will be good. The Cowboys will have double-digit wins. But they dropped a game that they should have never dropped against the Cardinals. And that's when the question started. But against the elite teams, you see the separation. So we'll see where the Cowboys still have to play the Eagles twice. And you got to win one of them. And then you also play the 49ers this weekend. What the Dallas Cowboys are really made out of. Where it doesn't make you, just if you win the game, say, oh, the Cowboys are definitely great and the Cowboys are going to be awesome and the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl. But if you lose this game, coming up on Monday, you're going to hear a lot of people say, this Dallas team, the real Dallas Cowboys are standing up. And I thought that was a good response by Jerry Jones. I didn't think we were going to, when we played that audio, and I did not believe when Santa said, oh, you got to hear this Jerry Jones audio before the show, it was going to result in something that I clearly and thoroughly understood with Jerry Jones. So let me give you my NFC power rankings with what I've seen, just the NFC, through the first 4 games of the season. In at number 5, I have the Detroit Lions. The Lions in week 1 had an enormous victory. I look at Detroit as a team that I was a little bit skeptical on them before the start of the season. You know, I like Dan Campbell. You're right, bite off your kneecaps, drink about 10,000 cups of coffee. I'm a fan of Dan Campbell. And that offense, you knew was going to be able to put up a lot of points. You know, Jared Goff is a solid quarterback. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he may be the new Keenan Allen, where everyone says, oh, he's the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL. You know, he's one of those guys that gets that everyone says he's like the most underrated wide receiver in the league. You'll eventually get back Jameson Williams off the gambling suspension. Sam Laporta has done a really good job, and that's a good draft pick. I've been disappointed with how early that they used took Jahmyr Gibbs with the 12th overall pick. The way that they've utilized him, I would thought that we would see more of Jahmyr Gibbs, but David Montgomery has done a good job. But the Lions are in at 5, and against a team in the Packers, which was on Thursday night to kick off week 4, they sent the message that there is a big discrepancy between the Lions and the Packers because you look inside that NFC North, right? The Vikings stink right now. And you examine the rest of that division. The Bears are awful. This is a 2-team race between the Lions and the Packers, and the Lions clearly showed that they are a better team. So I put the Lions in at number 5. 4, it's the Seahawks. I loved what I saw from the Seahawks secondary last night. We know last year they drafted Rick Woolen, and then this year they drafted Witherspoon, the cornerback who had the pick 6 and just a monster performance. You saw Seattle, and I thought their draft strategy the last 2 years was fascinating. Right? They draft Kenneth Walker, who I love, the running back. They draft Tyreek Woolen in the 5th round, who had turned out to be a star last year. And then from there, they doubled down this year, early on in the draft, taking a cornerback in the top 5, and then taking Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA, also in the 2nd round. And they have found a way to put a lot of young players and really capitalize off this Russell Wilson trade. And Geno Smith has turned out to be like a good quarterback in this league, which is crazy to say. So Pete Carroll has done a phenomenal job. The Seahawks beat the Lions, so I have to put the Seahawks in front of the Lions. But the big question this year was Seattle's defense ready to take that next step? They embarrassed Daniel Jones last night. I know he didn't have Andrew Thomas. I know he didn't have Saquon Barkley, but they had Jones under duress, and they kind of showed why Daniel Jones isn't a franchise quarterback. So I put the Seahawks in at number 4. And then number 3, it's the Dallas Cowboys, right? We just talked about it for 8 minutes. Mike McCarthy, I think, doesn't get enough credit for the job that he's done the last 2 years. And really the way that Mike McCarthy, I don't want to say check his ego, but has found a way to delegate where it got so nasty at the end between Rodgers and McCarthy in Green Bay. But in Dallas, and McCarthy's even said that, he's not been intimidated by Dan Quinn. And Dan Quinn has done a wonderful job with this defense. But a lot of people are speculating, oh, well, Dan Quinn one day replaced Mike McCarthy. And even McCarthy has said a few years ago, I probably let that get to me and have Dan go somewhere else. But he realized it's what's in the best interest of the team. And, you know, he did have a little power play that was won with the whole Kellen Moore situation. I think Kellen Moore is such an overrated coach in this league. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to be head coach. McCarthy just wanted to move on from him. And I know he's landed with the Los Angeles Chargers, which is a good landing spot with all their talent. But to go from offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator when people a few years ago had you as a trajectory of being a head coach, kind of shows you that Kellen Moore isn't all that. But for the Cowboys, it's very simple. Are you going to be able to beat the top dogs? And that's the 49ers and the Eagles inside the NFC. They got an opportunity this weekend against the 49ers, and they have 2 opportunities coming up against the Philadelphia Eagles. And number 2, I do put the Niners in there when I'm ranking my top 5 in the NFC. The Niners are in at 2. They have a ridiculous roster. The big difference why I put the Eagles in at 1 compared to the 49ers in at 2 is just the quarterback. Like, Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback. We've seen Jalen Hurts the last 2 years show that he is capable of winning MVPs in this league, and he got to a Super Bowl, and he outperformed Patrick Mahomes on the biggest game in the Super Bowl. So I just believe more in Jalen Hurts. These rosters are splitting hairs, but that's the big difference for me, and that's not me putting down Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has been rocking out with this Brock out, and he's been looking pretty awesome. You got a little scared there, Sam. You haven't heard me say that before.
I was like, where's the dump button? Where's the dump button?
Yeah, don't worry. You don't have to dump me. You know, there is one day that maybe I'm going to slip up and say that the wrong way, but it has not happened just yet.
And just because you said that, it's going to happen this week.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll get back to a story in just a second off of that, where one time I unintentionally cursed on the air and said something that I was not allowed to say, but it wasn't done intentionally. But just to put a bow on this and wrap up the point, Brock Purdy can be really good. I've just seen more of Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts be an elite level, where Brock Purdy, I still think we're all trying to figure out, is it more of Brock's excellence individually, or is it just being in a great system? So the one quick story, I was a little bit annoyed about some money that I may have lost. You know, it wasn't big-time bucks, but when you're right out of college and I was working on this station in Philadelphia, I was doing post-game, and it was the day after. Remember when Marcus Mariota threw a ball, caught it in the playoff game, and then scored a touchdown? It was Tennessee up against Kansas City, and I couldn't believe once Travis Kelce got hurt in the game, when you had the league's leading rusher in Kareem, Hunt, that they didn't give him the ball at all in the second half. And I know Andy Reid loves to abandon the run game all the time. So I said that very quickly, and I may have said a word that you're not allowed to say on the radio. And I did not have a great producer back then that was very astute and that was plugged in on either, I think it was an early Sunday morning, which would make sense. Saturday, primetime playoff game, Kansas City going up against the Tennessee Titans. And the producer didn't dump it. And there was 2 times on that station where something was said that should have been dumped that wasn't. That one, happened. I think everyone was okay with it because you could tell what I was trying to say. The other, I had someone prank phone call me and say they wanted to do something with my mother, which was not that nice. And I pressed the dump button, and so did the producer. But sometimes, behind the scenes of radio, when you carry live games, they take the delay off. Someone never put the delay back on. So we dumped it, and it never actually dumped because someone didn't ramp back up the delay. And I know you being a big-time radio guy, Samter, and an old-school radio guy, and a veteran of the business. Sorry to make you feel really old. That probably just annoys you just hearing that story.
Yeah, hearing me get screwed because other people screwed up is like that is like slow traffic, right? Other people impacting my ability to drive, a computer not working right, impacting my ability to do my work, or somebody else who I work with not doing something they're supposed to do, which therefore screws me up. Those are like my biggest pet peeves and unforgivable offenses.
Yeah, and I told management that I dumped it, and they were like, "Oh, it probably never happened," because I guess they weren't listening to the young weekend host, and it was new management too. It wasn't the management that hired me, so I don't know how much they actually love me. And then the same guy called their afternoon host a few days later, and I was listening, did the same whole line talking about that afternoon host's mother, and then they finally called me and said, "Oh yeah, you're right, that dump button wasn't actually working when it happened with their afternoon host."
Now listen, I've heard with the last name Hunt, if someone's first name is Michael,
yeah,
I can understand because you have the.
Don't give everyone the answers to the test here, Sam.
It's not about the answers. I'm confused. I can understand how you combine that letter of Mike.
I just said it very quickly.
Where is that? I guess it just must be a mouth fumble. It happens. We all have done it before. I just wasn't sure how the Kareem into Hunt could lead into that word.
Be very careful. Be very careful. That's why whenever I say the owner of the Chiefs' name, I always say Clark. Take a deep breath. Hunt.
Yeah, I always get messed up with slip disc.
Oh,
disc.
Bulging
disc.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of update anchors do that.
Yeah, you got to slow down and disc.
Anyway, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. If you want to react to the Jerry Jones situation, you could do that. 855-212-4CBS. That shouldn't say situation, just what he had to say. And how do you kind of look at the top teams in the NFC? A team that I didn't mention, though, Tampa Bay, they're lurking. And Tampa Bay could maybe be in the top 5 of the NFC teams at the end of the year. We'll come on back and we'll discuss the NFL MVP. Is this going to be the year where a non-QB wins the award? Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way? Like you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you can't do it? Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. Sometimes it's just a matter of talking things out so you can get a better understanding of what may be standing in your way, even if it's you. You know, we've all been through some unpredictable times over the past few years, and it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Gelb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gelb, GELB.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're basically saying that the officiating is the reason why you lost the game. And if that's the case, then Dak is lost. And Dak doesn't understand reality. Because Dak's the reason why they lost the game. Mike McCarthy's the reason why they lost the game. The bad offensive line play. Kellen Moore's stupid play calling. Those are the reasons, not the officials, why the Dallas stinking Cowboys lost the game. There is no way you could blame officiating on that one.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Tell me how you really feel. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. We'll get into this MVP conversation in just a moment, but let me take a phone call here first. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Mo in San Diego next up on the Zach Gelb Show. Mo, what's happening, man?
Zach, you sound good in the middle of the day out here. You sound great, man. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing fantastic, and I appreciate that. And it's nice to actually get out of this building at 6 p.m. Eastern, take a nice little 25-minute walk home, and cook some dinner at a normal hour. So I appreciate
normal
that.
hour. Well, it's great. I talked to Maggie and Perloff this morning, too, so they're doing great. Anyway, I was trying to dissect what you were talking about there with Jerry over there talking about that game.
How about them Cowboys?
You're correct in part of it, and what you said, this is a measuring stick game at the formerly known as candlestick game. And so that's obvious because for the Cowboys, they have been knocked out the last two seasons by the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
So therefore, they are a favorite, and that's a team that, we have to deal with. But I think when he says, talking about going through the Cowboys, I think he's saying simply this. We see ourselves as the Cowboys as a team that should be right at the top, and that does not necessarily mean that it has to be the Philadelphia Eagles because in Dallas's sense, they may have struggled with San Francisco, but their history with the Eagles doesn't say they can't beat Philadelphia.
You're right on that. That's a good point.
That's not a given. As in the last, as a matter of fact, you can say a lot of things about Dak, but his record against the NFC East is 28-7.
Yeah,
it's gaudy, and so I think Jerry's feeling, and you have to feel that way if you're the Cowboys owner. Hey, we have no choice but to say San Francisco is the top of the food chain because they've knocked us out. It's the evidence is there. But we're not submitting to Philly. We can't. You can't do that. And I think that's what he was trying to say. And that's all. It all makes sense. Of course, none of that matters until you play it on the field, and every year is different. So we'll see how it plays out. But it sure is exciting. The last thing I wanted to say, you said that Brock Purdy is a system quarterback. Do you feel that Jalen Hurts is playing in a system?
Well, so here's what I'll say, and it's a great question, Mo. You need talent around you to win. Like, if you don't have good wide receivers in the year of 2023 and a good offensive line,
the talent for sure,
it is tough to do so. But what I will say, in the Super Bowl, I thought Jalen Hurts was the system. Jalen Hurts did everything, running the football, throwing the football as well. And Quez Watkins dropped that ball in the Super Bowl and did not help him out. I think Jalen Hurts looks like an MVP, where I want to be clear here. When I say Brock Purdy is a system quarterback, it doesn't mean I think the guy stinks. It doesn't mean that I don't believe that one day he could elevate his game. I just haven't seen him enough individually to say that it's more so him than it is the system. I think Jalen Hurts could go anywhere right now, and for the most part, light the league on fire. I don't know if that's the case with Brock Purdy.
And you could be correct. You could be 100% correct. I just look at, how the Eagles run their offense with the RPOs, with the running game, and that offensive line. I mean, it makes so much sense. They're doing it perfectly, in sync with the strength of their team and the way it's set up. And Jalen Hurts, fits in.
Well, Mo, let me ask it to you this way. Would you rather have Jalen Hurts or would you rather have Dak Prescott if they were on the same team?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm honest.
It's not
about
like Dak doesn't have a lot. Dak has pieces.
He does have pieces, but I mean, he's been an excellent quarterback for a longer period of time than Jalen Hurts.
He's been good.
I see what Jalen Hurts did last year, but that was the first year he did that. So I still want to see a couple of more, some more seasons of that to show. And if he does, there's no doubt he's playing at a higher clip than Dak is. But to me, I put them in the same category. They're quarterbacks who are trying to get over the top. They're all trying to lead their team. They got holes, but they got good teams. And until they get over the top, they ain't gotten over the top.
Well, no, they haven't won a Super Bowl, and thanks for the phone call, Mo. But Jalen Hurts has been to an NFC championship game, won the NFC championship game, and has also been to a Super Bowl. Dak Prescott has not. Dean in Indianapolis next up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Dean, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good. How are you, man?
Doing great. What do you got?
Eagles are a great team. They're probably top three team in the league. But Jalen Hurts is not a great quarterback. He's
based off what?
Average. Based on he's got 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions this year.
Did you see him in the Super Bowl last year outplay the best quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes?
What happened to that game? Who won that game?
Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs. But just because you won the game doesn't mean that you outplayed another quarterback.
You can't say but.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this, Dean. Do you think Tom Brady played a bad game when he lost the Super Bowl to the Eagles and Tom Brady threw for 505 yards? Was that a performance where you're like, oh, Nick Foles was definitely better than Tom Brady?
You don't want to get me on Tom Brady.
Why? Why? Because you're a Colts fan? Because you're a Colts fan? Is that why?
System quarterback.
Dean, you're the biggest moron on the planet if you think Tom Brady's a system quarterback. Tell me all the great wide receivers that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with, Dean. I'm here. I'll take your phone call all day. Go ahead, Dean.
I have one question for you. When the Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady, you know how many people scored a point on that team that was on the previous season?
Can you name me any of the wide receivers Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with in New England? Go ahead.
Yes. All kinds.
All right, go ahead. Name them. I'm here. Take the phone call. Let's go. Name them. You got nothing, Dean. Troy Brown. We could talk about the year where they lost the AFC title game with Riche Caldwell and Doug Gabriel. Like, come on. He made Julian Edelman great. He made Danny Amendola to be a really good wide receiver. I didn't win a Super Bowl with Randy Moss. That was the great wide receiver you had. I know they had Rob Gronkowski. But, Dean, if you are living in the year of 2023 and you're going to call Tom Brady a system quarterback, How's the team been in New England without Tom Brady? Oh, wait, that's right, because Tom Brady was the system. That's maybe the dumbest, and I mean the dumbest phone call I've ever taken. And Dean is just someone that hates Tom Brady, and he can't appreciate the greatness of Tom Brady. Come on. We're talking about David Patton, David Givens, Troy Brown. Brady won 3 Super Bowls to start his career. And then won 3 more Super Bowls. And like at Brandon LaFell, Edelman's a good receiver, but not great. Danny Amendola, like, give me a break. What a ridiculous phone call that was. All righty, here's something I want to get into. The NFL MVP this year. Who is going to win the NFL MVP, and can it be a non-quarterback this year? So I also think not only when you win the MVP, you have to have the individual success, the obvious statement, but you have to have the team success. And so far, right, I kind of feel like for Mahomes to win the MVP, he's got to be the number 1 overall seed. And Mahomes, as great as he is, the offense isn't humming yet. I think it's a different standard for Mahomes to win the MVP. No one else in the AFC West is going to win the MVP this year. The AFC South, there's not going to be a quarterback that wins the MVP. In the North, maybe it is Lamar Jackson, seeing where the Ravens finish out this year. And in the AFC East, there could be a conversation of Josh Allen and then also Tua Tagovailoa. In the NFC, Hurts will be in that conversation. Now, we'll see how we're looking at Dak Prescott at the end of the year. I'm just going through quarterbacks right now because usually this is a quarterback award. NFC North, no one's going to win the MVP. NFC South, no one's going to win the MVP. And in the NFC West, I don't think Brock Purdy is going to win the MVP. So you go through that list, and with the Bengals taking a step back, it's not going to be Joe Burrow this year. And their offense has been garbage through the first 4 games of the season. But you go through that, and you say, maybe this is shaping out to be one of those years where we're accustomed that the quarterback always wins the MVP, and then the offensive player of the year is the best non-quarterback, because that's how the way the award has gone recently. And if I had to give you a name right now, and this is my offensive player of the year before the start of the season, I kind of feel like there's a great case to be made as long as he stays healthy for Christian McCaffrey to win the NFL MVP this year. Because it goes back to the conversation that we're having right now. I like Brock Purdy. You know, I'm not tearing down Brock Purdy, but when you think of the 49ers offense, Brock Purdy isn't the first guy that you think of. It's Christian McCaffrey. And they have other very talented players too. My BFF in Deebo Samuel, you have Brandon Ayuk, you have Kittle too. There's a lot of talented players there. But McCaffrey right now is their best player on offense. So if I had to take a crack at this and say if it's not going to be a quarterback, who's going to win the MVP this year in the NFL? I'll look at the odds right now for Christian McCaffrey. Maybe I'll sprinkle a few shekels on that after the show. Samter and Stu, I know that we're all now accustomed to the MVP is going to be a quarterback. And maybe it ends up being Josh Allen if the Bills win the AFC East and maybe have the number 1 seed in the AFC. But it's looking a little bit around the league like there's a legitimate chance this year that a non-quarterback can win the MVP. And McCaffrey is the first one that should be at the top of the list out of the non-quarterbacks.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. I mean, you look at what the wide receivers are doing. I'm not saying Puka Nacua is going to be an MVP candidate, but Justin Jefferson,
Puka Nacua,
Tyreek Hill, right? You tell me that Tyreek Hill can't catch 2,000 yards and be an MVP candidate?
Here's the thing, though. I don't think Tyreek will get to 2,000 yards because he also has Jalen Waddle on that team. I know he was close last year with 1,800.
Ironically, it seems like he has his better games when Waddle is there compared to when Waddle is out.
You are right in that because I know Waddle came back last week, but the week before that, he didn't have a tremendous showing. But I look back the last 2 years, like Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown for wide receiver, didn't win the MVP. Justin Jefferson, I was pushing at like week 2 for him to win the MVP. He wasn't even close really last year. When you look back at that, you knew it was going to be a quarterback. So I do think it's so tough, especially for if it's going to be someone, I think, and a wide receiver's never won the MVP. I think it's going to be a running back.
Justin Jefferson's on pace. I mean, I know it's on pace for 2,300 yards.
Yeah, but the Vikings aren't going to make the playoffs. You're not going to win the MVP if you're not making the playoffs.
That's true. So then maybe we look at some of the teams that might make the playoffs, right? We're looking at Christian McCaffrey.
He's the best
position, a couple of the wide receivers we talked about. What about TJ Watt or Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa over in San Francisco.
So
there's Micah Parsons. If the Cowboys win that division and Micah Parsons continues to dominate, there are some defensive players who are deserving of MVP consideration.
So the 4 defensive players that you name, Micah Parsons, possible, especially with Diggs now going down for the season as well. Nick Bosa, I think they would go more McCaffrey in offense than they would go defense. And then as far as Watt and Myles Garrett, who are having sensational seasons, I just don't think the team success is going to be there. This will either be a quarterback or it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, for this year. Early MVP situation in the NFL, 4 weeks in. If it's not a quarterback, who's someone that you're going to throw maybe a few bucks on? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I'll update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio when we come on back. But first up with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
Well, the baseball postseason is underway. 2 of the 4 games are in action right now, both in the American League. Top of the 6th in Tampa Bay, the Rangers have a 2-0 lead over the Rays. They got a sacrifice fly in the first, and when they loaded the bases in the 5th, they were only able to score once, and that came on a wild pitch by the pitcher, Tyler Glasnow. They are now in the 6th with the Rangers up by a score of 2-0. The other part of the American League pairing today are the Twins back in the playoffs. They haven't won, though, in the postseason since 2004. 0 for their last 18. They're hosting the Blue Jays. The other game in the National League today features the NL Central champion Brewers hosting the Diamondbacks, who are in the postseason for the first time since 2017. And the Marlins, the surprise team of the bunch, taking on the Phillies in Philadelphia. The Patriots' Matthew Judon will miss at least 2 months, maybe more, headed for surgery on his torn bicep, while Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett has a bruised knee. He'll practice tomorrow. Then the team will determine his status moving forward. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online, Maggie? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube.
And in the palm of your hand, pearl off with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, news brief time on CBS Sports Radio. This was on the Zach Gelb show, which you're listening to right now. It's always weird to say because it's a different time slot when this happens, 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, so that's why I said it. This was Magic Johnson with me last week when I asked him if he is still the greatest point guard of all time after Steph Curry said that himself is the greatest point guard ever.
If he got more than 5 championships, if he got more than 3 finals MVP and 3 league MVPs, then he's the greatest. If he got more than number 1 in assists all time in the finals, number 2 in double-doubles, number 1 in triple-doubles all time in the NBA playoffs, number 4 in steals all time in the playoffs. If he got more than those numbers, he's the best, but the last time I checked, he doesn't.
So that was Magic Johnson. Clearly he was annoyed with Steph Curry saying, even though Steph did it in a respectful way, that Steph believes he's the greatest point guard of all time. And, I expect Magic to say himself, because I believe he is. I believe that Steph should also say himself, because you're in that conversation. So this was brought up today at Media Day. This is via 95.7 The Game in San Francisco, where Steph Curry was basically asked to respond to the whole Magic Johnson conversation.
This summer you said that you're the best point guard of all time. Michael Jordan disagreed, and then Magic Johnson, he said himself. What do you think about that dialogue? Do you think that's more of just a generational thing?
It's all that. It's also the unsolvable debate that is why everybody asks those questions and why everybody loves to talk about them. It's because I can say I'm the best, and Magic can defend his position, and any other point guard can chime in. It's the beautiful thing about basketball and the eras, like the way I answered the question at first. Obviously there's so much respect and admiration for what Magic did in his career. His resume is second to none. And so no matter what area you're from, no matter what your style of play was, traditional point guard, hybrid, whatever it is, if you're in that conversation, then it's a job well done.
So when I asked the question to Magic Johnson, I said I thought Steph was respectful in his response, even though Steph said himself. I was really surprised how it set Magic off. And maybe this stuff gets to Magic where you see an all-time great player in Steph Curry and he feels like he's starting to infringe on his territory. And everyone loves getting called the greatest and the best. And when others start to say, maybe it's Steph Curry, maybe that did strike a nerve with Magic Johnson in the response. Let's go to LeBron James at Lakers Media Day when asked about if Anthony Davis is the face of the Lakers.
I mean, he is the face, and he's another. You look at all these numbers that surround this facility, all the greats that's come here, and 80 is one of them. So I was very happy and extremely proud, and just super dope to see him get that extension, to be a part of this franchise for years and years and years, and it's been a treat so far playing alongside of him, and I hope we can do some great things. Yeah, LeBron's wrong. He's not the face of the Lakers. As long as LeBron James is on the team, you can't say that Anthony Davis is the face of the Lakers. You may believe that Anthony Davis is the most valuable player on the Lakers because LeBron can't win on his own right now, and you need Anthony Davis to be healthy, but that's a different conversation. Whenever people talk about the Lakers right now, the first player you think of is LeBron James. It's not Anthony Davis. Maybe one day it will be Anthony Davis, but that won't happen until LeBron James is either on a new team or retired from the NBA. Here is Anthony Davis on the motivation to beat the Nuggets after losing to them in the Western Conference Finals. This courtesy of our friends at Spectrum Sportsnet.
It's very motivational. I mean, obviously, KCP is my guy, so you kind of congratulate him, like, you got this one. But it was just a lot of, the talking and all the Lakers. It was just so much of that going on. All right, we get it, y'all won. But, I think, me and Brian had some conversations we can't wait.
Well, the reason why there was a lot of talking was, you win the championship, you pop off. But also, in that Western Conference Finals where the Nuggets, let me remind everyone, did sweep the Lakers, the entire conversation was all about Lakers this, Lakers that, and Mike Malone fed into that and used it as motivation for his team. And when you win a championship, you look back at the run, and I think that was a big part inside the locker room. Now, the Lakers could have all this motivation that they want. If LeBron and Anthony Davis aren't healthy, it doesn't matter how motivated you are. But heading into this season, the Lakers aren't the best team in the West. They're not even the second best team in the West. I believe the third spot is up for grabs, but to kind of look at it the way that we look at football in the NFC, it's clear that the 49ers and Eagles are the two best teams in the NFC, and we're trying to figure out who the third best team is. Right now, I would say it's Dallas. In the NBA's Western Conference, the two best teams heading into this season are the Nuggets and then also the Phoenix Suns. And the question is who will emerge there as the third best team in the Western Conference. Let's go to David Griffin, who runs the Pelicans, on Zion Williamson and what type of shape that he's in right now.
Everybody has alluded to Zion. Zion is obviously in good condition. And this was the first summer where we've seen Zion really take his profession seriously like that and invest it off the court on his own in a way that I think is meaningful.
Well, that's good. At least you're seeing progress from Zion Williamson. I don't know how much of that is actually genuine. Zion does look like he's in better shape. So that would be saying that he, yes, put in the work this offseason to get into that better shape, but can his body hold up and will that continue? But this needs to be a wake-up call this offseason for Zion Williamson, and hopefully it was, because we haven't seen a lot of Zion Williamson on the court, and I hope that does change here in 2023. Let's go to the newest member of the Milwaukee Bucks, Damian Lillard. He said he was actually pranked that he was dealt to the Raptors before finding out that he was going to be teammates with Giannis Antetokounmpo. This is courtesy of NBA TV with Chris Haynes.
Everything was up in the air. I was on the phone and I just got a random text from OG like, "Welcome to Toronto." So I was like, man, let me call this dude and see. And I finally called him. He didn't answer. Then he called me back. He was laughing. I was like, okay.
So we all knew that Damian Lillard wanted to go to Miami, right? Missing piece for a championship team. The Heat needed a finisher. Now, when the Miami deal wasn't going down, other teams he was thinking about, clearly the Milwaukee Bucks, that's a championship team. I saw there was one report that he was contemplating the Nets. If you're trying to win a championship, I don't get why you would go to Brooklyn. But the Raptors are also thrown out there, and the Raptors aren't anywhere close to getting back into championship form. But I thought that was hilarious that OG Anunoby behind the scenes texted him and basically said, "Oh, congrats, you're welcome to Toronto," to kind of poke a little fun and have some fun at the expense of Damian Lillard and probably give Damian Lillard a little bit of a sports heart attack. Let's go to Miles Sanders, who I think is overrated with the Carolina Panthers. And this is not going to make me happy. I guess he was asked about the fans booing in Carolina, and this was Miles Sanders' response.
How does it make you feel when you hear the fans booing the offense?
It's not cool. It's not cool at all, especially at home. It's just not good for them.
So Miles Sanders did something similar in Philadelphia. Your play speaks for itself. That's what I'll tell Miles Sanders. Where your team stinks right now with the Carolina Panthers, you're not living up to that contract. Fans are allowed to boo. Now, sometimes fans cross the line, but if they're just booing and that gets you very, in a sensitive mood, I'm not saying you should like it, but I wouldn't go public with that. What do you want Panthers fans to do? Show up to the stadium and cheer when the team is playing like absolute dog crap? And I thought Malcolm Jenkins once handled it perfectly. It's when I was covering the Eagles and I was in Philadelphia. Eagles just won a Super Bowl. Their first game back against the Atlanta Falcons. They are down at halftime. They got booed off the field after the first 30 minutes since winning a Super Bowl. And Malcolm Jenkins got in front of the cameras after the game and he said, "I love that Eagles fans aren't getting spoiled. And I love that they're going to hold us accountable." I'm not saying athletes should love to get booed, but go play better is what I would say to Miles Sanders. And there's nothing for Panthers fans to actually cheer about. And finally, let's get to Jonathan Smith. When he was running down the clock and milking the clock, he was rubbing his nipples, and he had to apologize about that.
Not looking just only at our players on tape, looking at myself on tape, in regards to how we signal plays at the end, communicate. Got to do things better there. So for those I offended with that, I apologize. I won't be using that signal again.
Who was offended by that? You're milking the clock and you're rubbing his male breasts, let's just say, for the head football coach. And there's actually someone out there that clearly said something to him. Maybe you shouldn't do that, where he thought people were offended that you had to apologize. I know sometimes people say society is soft, and I don't always agree with that. But if you have to apologize for that, geez Louise, that's a joke.
Probably shouldn't be rubbing your nipples during a football game. Let's be honest.
You do it all the time, Samter. What are you talking about? Before the show? I say you do that all the time. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And away we go, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We all saw what the Seattle Seahawks did to the New York Football Giants last night to conclude Week 4. And there's 2 takeaways from that. Number 1, even though Daniel Jones is paid like a franchise quarterback, he looked like the farthest thing from a franchise quarterback last night. And there's one thing when you're missing your best offensive lineman and you're missing your best playmaker in Saquon Barkley, but the fumble and then more so the interception when you were trying to get back into the game is really unexcusable. And you see the same old mistakes just when sometimes people start to buy into Daniel Jones, pop back up, and this Giants team is going nowhere other than picking inside the top 10 of the draft. I don't think that's an overreaction 4 weeks into the season, where this is a team that's 1-3, and is anyone going to tell me right now that the New York Giants are going to go to Miami or going to go to Buffalo and beat either of those teams with the amount of points the Dolphins could put up, the amount of points the Bills could put up? I just simply do not see that. So the Giants are heading to 1-5. The big question with the Giants before the year was we knew there was going to be regression. Samter kind of painted the picture yesterday. They were going to fall flat on their face. I just thought that there was going to be some slight regression for the Giants. It looks like, though, we're going to see some big-time regression here for the New York Giants, where we all knew they overachieved last year. And eventually, when you don't have a ton of talent, you could only win so many games. But this team is bottoming out, and they're bottoming out real early. And there's no encouraging things I could say because let's just be real about it. This is a football team that their one win, they were down 20-something points. And I know the Cardinals have been a gritty team this year, better than what we could expect. But the Cardinals aren't a good team. And they had to scratch and claw and be as resilient as possible to come on back and defeat the Arizona Cardinals. So the Giants are going nowhere. Now, as far as the Seahawks, my takeaway from last night with the Seahawks, where Seattle could have been viewed similarly as the Giants, where Seattle has more talent than the Giants, but was there going to be regression when you lose Russell Wilson? I know Russell Wilson's career is going the wrong way now, but is Geno Smith going to be able to be all that for another year? And this was a team that made the playoffs. Could you not only repeat that success, but could you get better next year? And through the first 4 weeks of the season, outside of the Rams game, this has been a good football team that also beat the Detroit Lions, who everyone loves to praise, not only inside the NFC, but also the NFL. But I examine this Seahawks team, and I can't say this enough, because sometimes in the media, right, we get things wrong, and you crucify a coach, or you lambaste the player, and then you're proven to be wrong, and people in the media go, oh, I never said that, or it didn't happen, and you can't find the tape, blah, blah, blah. It's okay for talk show hosts, for analysts, whatever you want to call us, to admit that they got things wrong. And a big part of the conversation when Russell Wilson got traded was the game has passed Pete Carroll by, and shame on Pete Carroll for not finding a way to fix the relationship with Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks were going to be a disaster. How could you trust Geno Smith, or how could you trust Drew Lock when it was a conversation of who was going to be able to start for the Seattle Seahawks? And last year, the Seahawks with Geno Smith as their quarterback, not only did Geno win Comeback Player of the Year, but they made the playoffs. So this year, we're all trying to figure out what the Seahawks are going to be. In the offseason, I thought they could be the third best team in the NFC. Right now, if you're listening earlier, in my NFC power rankings, I have them as 4, with the Eagles being 1, Niners being 2, Cowboys 3, Seahawks 4, and then the Detroit Lions being in at 5. But Pete Carroll is someone that today every single talk show host and every single media platform should be praising Pete and genuflecting to him. Because 2 years ago, it got ugly, it got nasty, and people went after Pete Carroll and forgot how good of a coach this was. And maybe with how close Pete is to Russ, and how Pete was Russ's loyal supporter for however many years it was, if he was okay with getting rid of Russell Wilson, maybe that should have been a big message that everyone else should have said, maybe we shouldn't question Pete that much and actually trust him. And look where we are 2 years later. But you see the way that Pete Carroll and John Schneider have run this organization the last 2 years, because it's very tough to get rid of your quarterback, your star quarterback, regardless of what you think he is, and have this success. And this is going to be a team that most likely is going to be going to the playoffs without Russell Wilson in back-to-back seasons. When Russell Wilson's in Denver and is already on his second coach in Denver, and I know people could say, oh, Russ isn't playing horribly this year. Yeah, he's not, stat-wise, he's not playing like he's a bad quarterback. But that team has only won one game. And the one game they won was up against the Chicago Bears, where you had to have a comeback to do so when you were down 28-7. And let's see what happens with the Broncos this week going up against another bad team in the New York Jets. But getting back to Pete, and I'll just throw this question out there. Is there a more impressive coach in the NFL in the last 2 seasons than Pete Carroll? And I was examining all the names, and I can't say that there's a coach in the last 2 years that has done a more impressive job than Pete Carroll. You know, Sean McDermott, great win against the Dolphins. But the last 2 years, your team hasn't been able to capitalize on that championship window. Mike McDaniel is up there. It's been 1 year, he made the playoffs last year. Skylar Thompson was his quarterback, and they lose to the Bills in the slimmest of margins, and the Dolphins outside of Sunday have been humming. So McDaniel's kind of in that conversation, but the Dolphins have so much talent. I'm not saying Seattle doesn't have talent. They have DK Metcalf, they have Tyler Lockett. But if you ask anyone around the league, would you rather have Tua or Geno Smith? It's not even close. You'd rather have Tua Tagovailoa compared to Geno Smith. You look inside the AFC West, Andy Reid, we all know he's a Hall of Fame coach. He has Patrick Mahomes. What Pete Carroll has done is more impressive, and Pete Carroll didn't win a Super Bowl last year. And it's no one else in the AFC West, right? The rest of the coaches there, jeez. You want to talk about a clown show and a comedy show. Maybe the Comedy Cellar here in New York City should invite Brandon Staley, Sean Payton, and Josh McDaniels to do the opening act before they go through their great list of comedians. In the NFC North, I'll give credit to Harbaugh. It was a messy situation last year with Lamar Jackson. Still made the playoffs with the backup quarterback in Tyler Huntley. Gave the Bengals everything they could until the fact where Huntley tried to go be Michael Jordan, jumping from the 2-yard line to try to get in the end zone where he fumbled the ball, and then it goes for a touchdown. Tomlin, really good coach. Stefanski, no. Zach Taylor's done a heck of a job the last 2 years, but you think more so about Joe Burrow and Lou Anarumo before you give praise to Zach Taylor. AFC South, yes, Steichen and D'Amico Ryans have been really good, but it's their first year. Doug Peterson, heck of a job last year, and Mike Vrabel's a good coach, but you were 7-3 last year, and you didn't make the playoffs, and you lost all your games down the stretch. In the NFC, Sirianni's impressive. McCarthy's done a good job. Brian Daboll was impressive last year. This year, he really could pull the carpet out from underneath them. Ron Rivera, got to make the playoffs this year. Shanahan, really impressive coach, but this quarterback situation up until Brock Purdy has been a mess. And McVay, they're regressing. You look around here, NFC North, Campbell, give him a round of applause. We'll see what LaFleur is as a head coach. Kevin O'Connell, good 1 year, bad this year. NFC South, I can't pick any of those coaches yet. So you go through the entirety of the league, it's incredible to win with less. And when you have a guy like Pete Carroll, where he's not a coach that has no talent, but you significantly declined your quarterback play in the public perception, and everyone's hammering you, everyone's saying retire, oh, you should be fired at the end of the year if this doesn't work out. He got it right. And it just shows you, like we talk about great organizations, and there's some organizations like right away, oh, Patriot, great organization. Oh, the Ravens, a great organization. The Steelers, a great organization. The 49ers, a great organization. Like there's just some teams that we talk about. Philadelphia, a great organization. Where the teams roll right off the tip of the tongue. Seattle is a great organization. What the Seahawks have done for the last decade is really impressive. And I know they went to 2 Super Bowls. They won one, and then they should have won another. And Pete Carroll and Darrell Bevell made an idiotic decision. But in this second chapter, after losing a franchise legend, because the franchise legend said, I want to be more of an icon, I want to be more of a celebrity than an actual quarterback, you know that the public's going to turn on you, and they're going to hold you accountable, Pete Carroll, if you don't get it right. And the Seahawks have got it right. And if you would have told me 3 years ago, Zach, you'd be on a national radio show, and you would be talking confidently about Geno Smith, I would have never believed you in a million years. But here we are, where you had a team that has a very likable coach, and they saw their coach getting dragged through the mud publicly, and all they've done has won since then. And I know you could say, oh, they haven't won a Super Bowl, or they haven't won a division championship. But they've been to the playoffs with Geno Smith as their quarterback. The Seahawks made Geno Smith the comeback player of the year in the NFL. And now this year, where we see teams like the Vikings have a strong season and the Giants have a strong season, and now they're bottoming out in the second year of Brian Daboll and Kevin O'Connell, Pete Carroll in the second year without Russell Wilson is excelling. He's a coach right now that is 3-1. With the defense, when you look at what John Schneider did in the draft in working with Pete Carroll, a defense the last 2 years that drafted really well, getting a cornerback in the 5th round, and then with the 5th overall pick, taking a cornerback as well. I know we haven't seen the success yet offensively, but I believe Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be a good wide receiver. You have Tyler Lockett, who's an incredibly underrated wide receiver in the NFL. DK Metcalf, thank you for the anytime touchdown money last night. We appreciate that. But he's a stud. And then you have two really good young running backs in Zach Charbonnet and then also Kenneth Walker. And here's the other thing. Look at Pete Carroll, where you could say, Zach, that's a lot of talent that you just have. And you're talking about this guy as if he's like one of the great football coaches. How many teams this year have we complained about their offensive line? The Seattle Seahawks have had a bunch of injuries. They had to call Jason Peters out of retirement. I thought, that guy felt like he retired 5 years ago. He keeps on popping up on teams, whether it's Dallas or Chicago, and now Seattle. That offensive line has been injured. That offensive line has had question marks. And this team is still 3-1. Pete Carroll keeps on performing, and he keeps on exceeding expectations. And in the last 2 years, I can't think of a coach, considering the circumstances, that has done a more impressive job than Pete Carroll. And usually when we talk about like the best coach in the league, forever it was Belichick. Now Belichick, right, isn't getting the job done in New England. Andy Reid started to take that number one spot. You look at Sean McVay, he's been under consideration as well, especially after he won a Super Bowl. Other years it's been Tomlin, it's been Harbaugh. When you talk about the top 5 coaches in the league, Sirianni's on his way. Kyle Shanahan has done a really good job as well. There's a bunch of names. And I think if this continues, where maybe Pete Carroll wins a playoff game, we may be looking at this time next year where we say Pete Carroll's the best coach in football entering the 2024 season. But right now, as far as I'm willing to go, he's the most impressive coach in the NFL right now. Because I would have never thought after getting rid of Russell Wilson that you would be on pace to make the playoffs in back-to-back years. And I would actually trust what the Seahawks are doing with Geno Smith as their quarterback. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. If you want to chime in on a conversation on who's the most impressive coach in the NFL, we got phone lines open for you. You could always interact with me on Twitter and Instagram as well, at Zach Gelb, ZachGelb. Santa, you got something to say? They look like you're itching to say something.
Listen, I love Pete Carroll. He's a former Jets defensive coordinator, and he wasn't great as a coach there, but he was a former Jet. I have a place in my heart for Pete Carroll. But there's two guys that you're missing.
Okay.
And I know that maybe because of what's going on this year, it's easy to overlook Zach Taylor. But I mean, what he's done in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mentioned him.
Bringing them to a Super Bowl, AFC Championship game, that's the guy to me, in my head, that I think has done the best job because the expectations for the Bengals were so low. And what he's done with that team, now we look back, we're like, oh, of course, they're great. The Bengals are fantastic. And yeah, they're off to a rough start now. But 2 years ago, when they went to the Super Bowl, they were picked to finish last in that division.
But here's the thing. I'm not saying Zach Taylor's a bad football coach. When I look at the Seahawks, I don't see a Joe Burrow on that team. When I look at the Bengals, I see Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Hendrickson's very good defensively. I give Zach Taylor credit, right? Made the right hire in Lou Anarumo as well, who should be a head coach in this league. I'm not taking away from Taylor, but he's not one of the first people that you think of. With the Seahawks, the first person you think of is Pete Carroll.
Sure. And then here's the second one that, to me, just stands out.
This is an egregious miss, you're saying.
Not an egregious miss.
A swing and a miss.
This is a guy where, like, you want to talk about, okay, you think about the team, you think about the coach, and what he's done. You got Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. He's working with Jared Goff. For the most part, I'll take Geno Smith over Jared Goff most days. And when you think about the Lions and that franchise and how moribund they've been, he's not only turning around a team, he's turning around a franchise.
Sure.
A team, a franchise that has a loser mentality, a loser history, one playoff win in 40 years or whatever the number is. They are a joke, and he's turned them into a team that believes in themselves, that has confidence, that the country is rallying behind, and they don't have a star quarterback there either. Dan Campbell has turned that franchise around. I think Dan Campbell, to me, if the Lions continue on this trajectory,
which they have to do,
yes, will surpass Pete Carroll and the Seahawks.
And it's just fair to point out that Pete Carroll did beat Dan Campbell a few weeks ago, 37-31 in overtime. You're not wrong, though, in terms of how good of a coach Dan Campbell has been.
Yes.
But let's see them make the playoffs first. Let's see them win the division going away first. And right now, it looks like they've set themselves up to do that. All righty, Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back. big game for Georgia this weekend. They look vulnerable with the way that they've played up against South Carolina and Auburn. They welcome in one of the more underrated coaches in the country, and Mark Stoops, who's actually going to join us tomorrow. But first up, we will have Aaron Murray, the former Georgia quarterback and now college football analyst. He'll join us when we return in 5 minutes right here on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break.
We continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio, continuing to go through the college football season. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in the former Georgia quarterback. Big matchup this weekend, Georgia up against Kentucky. And you can find Darren Murray all over the place, ESPN, Sirius, and The Volume. And he's kind enough to join us right now. Aaron, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
Good, man. Appreciate you. We're in the thick of a very entertaining college football season. It is... it's wide open, man, which is exciting. It kind of feels closer to the NFL product. I know there's a lot of college football fans that kind of are a little disturbed with some of the direction we're going with NIL, the transfer portal, yada, yada, yada. But I don't think you can complain with how exciting each Saturday has been because of some of these new rule changes. And I think the future for college football is pretty bright. So it should be another great weekend of some great action.
Yeah, it's so funny where we're at with your program because we know they're the kings of college football, and now it's not just win, you got to win with style points, and that hasn't been the case with South Carolina and Auburn. When you look at Georgia right now through the first few weeks of the season, where's your confidence level at with them?
Not as high as it's been for the past couple of years, and I think that's kind of the sentiment among the Georgia faithful right now. There are some question marks, and I guess I'll give one big excuse, and Kirby kind of hit this coming out of camp. They had a really bad camp in the sense of not like it wasn't competitive or they didn't feel good about their players, but they got banged up. It was a very, and that's the one thing that you always talk about with elite teams. Like what will hold a team back from winning a championship that has the type of talent that Georgia has? The first thing is injuries. Can you stay healthy? You know, that will derail a season right away. And it hasn't yet. I mean, they're still 5-0. They're undefeated. They're finding ways to win football games, but they've yet to be healthy. Ladd McConkey, their best receiver, finally played this weekend versus Auburn, but in limited snaps. One of their best offensive linemen, Mims, has been out for 3 weeks. They've been shuffling the offensive line around. So the running back position has been banged up. Edwards has only played 2 games. Kendall Milton's only played a couple games. So I think they're trying to just survive right now as guys work their way back to being able to compete week in and week out in an SEC schedule. So that I think you'll see improvement once all those guys are on the field, but they're not as dominant in the trenches. And if you think about Georgia football over the past 2 years, like why has Georgia won? Well, they've kicked everyone's butt at the line of scrimmage. 2 years ago, Jordan Davis and company and Nolan Smith. Last year, Jalen Carter, and we're seeing him what he's doing in the NFL right now for Philadelphia, was an absolute terror. They don't have that guy on the defensive line spot right now. They're not getting after the quarterback as consistently as years past, and they're not running the ball as consistently as they have in years past either. So, like I said, part of that's to do with injuries, especially in the offensive line. But I just think plain and simple, they're just not as dominant in the interior as we're used to seeing it.
How about the quarterback? What is Aaron Murray's evaluation of Carson Beck so far?
I think he's great, man. Like there's so many fans. It just drives me crazy. And I think the problem is when you watch a game, you watch just in the box. Like that's all you're seeing. You're not watching, and it's unfortunate. I would love for more fans to get the all 22 and be able to get the access to see, plan and play out what truly is going on the back end. I think he's been awesome this entire season. He's taking care of the football. He's getting the ball out of his hands. He's not taking sacks. He's doing a better job these past 2 weeks of taking some more shots down the field. But in crunch time, because that was the big thing, like in close games in the past couple of years, Stetson Bennett has found a way to win football games. Does Carson Beck have that in his DNA? And I think based on what we've seen in the second half for South Carolina, and then the game-winning drive versus Auburn on the road, a quality defense, hostile environment, he did not flinch for a single second. There was not a moment watching the game versus Auburn that I felt like this kid is going to lose it. He doesn't have command of the offense. The moment's too big for him. You could tell by his demeanor in the pocket and the throws he was making, the type of the way in which the ball was coming out of his hands. This kid's got it. This kid's got that juice you need and crunch time to go out there and win, and he's done that. So I think he's had a hell of a start to the season, and I think he's only going to get better and better as we get further along.
This is a really fun matchup, Aaron Murray, on Saturday. Mark Stoops is one of the more underrated coaches in the country. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1, no confidence, 10, the most confidence in the world. Where's the confidence level at with Georgia going up against Kentucky that they'll find a way to get the job done?
I think being at home helps. And I know there's a big worry of like, oh my gosh, Auburn ran the ball over Georgia last week, at over 200 yards, the first time it's happened in 5 years or 4 years, whatever it's been. And look at Ray Davis and just how good the big blue wall was last week versus Florida. Oh my gosh, two very different running style offenses. Auburn did a great job of essentially creating a triple option style attack where Robbie Ashford was running well, Payne Thorne was running well. It was a modern day triple option, plain and simple. Hugh Freeze had an incredible game plan. Hugh Freeze took over the play calling last week, and Philip Montgomery just assisted the OC there. And I thought he did a great job getting on the edges. Obviously, did a great job of incorporating the quarterback, adding that extra blocker with the running back, giving Georgia a lot to handle. That's what the triple option does. You have to worry about the dive, you have to worry about the quarterback, you have to worry about the pitch, and it's just really tough. Kentucky's more traditional. Kentucky is the offense line has looked improved from what they were last year. Ray Davis is a hell of a running back, but you're going to get the traditional running schemes, which I think is a little bit easier for a defense to kind of handle that. So I think that will be more manageable on that side of the football. But Kentucky's a really good football team. Like, I love what they can do. I think their defense can get after you. I think they're talented on the back end. Devin Leary has not clicked yet. Is this the game where he clicks? You've seen a couple moments here or there, but nothing special in the passing game. But you look at him, you're like, all right, you got a quarterback like Devin, who we saw 2 years ago was dominant at NC State. You got receivers like Robinson and Berrien Brown and Dane Key and Jordan Dingle at the tight end position. Like, you should be good throwing the football. Once again, it just has not come together for Kentucky. So I think for Georgia fans, you're hoping that it's not this week where all of a sudden they're able to run the ball with Ray Davis, and then on top of that, be able to play action, take some shots down the field. So we'll see. But I still think Georgia fans feel pretty confident that they can take care of business versus Kentucky this weekend at home.
Do you trust either Alabama or A&M when they go up against one another this week? Because Bama, the quarterback situation's been a mess, and now Wegman's done for the year for the Aggies.
I love Max Johnson. Like, I'll start there first. Like, Max, to me, you go back a couple of years ago, what he was doing at LSU on a not very good LSU football team. I was like, man, this kid's got it. He was a young kid making a lot of big time throws and has a lot of talent. Good size, good arm strength, throws with anticipation, or he's gotten better throwing with anticipation. And he's athletic. He can beat you with his legs too. And he's shown that over the course of his career. So I don't think it was an upgrade with Wegman. Obviously, he was a starter, but I don't think it was a downgrade either. I think what you thought about A&M prior to the injury is how you should view A&M, with Max Johnson as your quarterback now. So that's you have two really good quarterbacks, and I know A&M feels pretty good about that going forward. I've been impressed since that USF game, though, with Alabama flipping it over to that side, with now what their mentality is. It's we are going to just run the damn football. Because they're a really good defense, man. They're big, they're fast, they're physical on that side of the football. Just don't force Jalen to throw the ball more than 20 times in a game. I think if A&M could put them into a situation where he's having to be in known passing downs, advantage A&M. So it's all going to be first and second down success, plain and simple. You have, I think, the most physical offensive line who's great at run protection, not great at pass protection, great at run pro, going against one of the best, if not best, front sevens in college football. A&M is big. They're faster, physical up front. That wasn't what beat them versus Miami. It was more the secondary, and we're starting to give Miami some more respect when it comes to throwing the football this year. So it's going to be a battle. It is going to be an all-out war. Alabama's offensive line, A&M's defensive line. Can Alabama get to third and 5 and under? Can A&M hold them to third and 6+? That's going to be determining of what this ball game is going to be when it's all said and done.
When we get to Red River between Oklahoma and Texas, Aaron Murray, is it horns up this week or horns down?
I think it's horns up. I think I like Oklahoma, what they've done this year. And it's funny, if you look at the stats of breaking down everything of offensive production, defensive production, Oklahoma is like 1, Texas is 2 in that conference. But Oklahoma hasn't really played anyone yet either. So they've done what they've needed to do against lesser competition, but Texas is more battle proven right now. Like, went into Tuscaloosa, won that football game. Wyoming's 4-1.
Yeah.
Like you kind of like, oh, they barely escaped away. They had to have a great fourth quarter to beat Wyoming. Wyoming's 4-1 and beat Texas Tech. That's a good football team.
Down
really good football
17-2, Wyoming was when they beat them.
Yeah. So, and then you beat Kansas. I know Kansas didn't have their quarterback last week, but you have 2 ranked wins on your resume. I think Texas is better at more positions. They're more physical in the interior. I just don't think Oklahoma has faced a team that can punch them in the mouth, that can get after Dylan Gabriel. And I think it's going to be somewhat tough sledding, but I think Oklahoma's a good team. Like, I don't think Texas is just going to roll. I think this is a single-digit game. I think Oklahoma has the personnel. I think in year 2 with Venables, you're seeing that defense play more fundamentally sound football. They're not as talented as Texas, but they also do a lot on that side of the football to create havoc. Different fronts, 4-down fronts, 3-down fronts, bear fronts, exotic blitzes. Danny Stutzman at linebacker has had a hell of a season. So, like, they do things to take advantage schematically of maybe not being as physical as what Texas is. But I still think at the end of the day, Texas is the better football team. Texas has the better quarterback. Texas has the better receivers. They got the run game going right now. I do think horns up, like you alluded to, when it's all said and done.
Last thing I'll ask you, when we look at the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, Aaron Murray, who do you have as the best team right now in the Pac-12 or the best team in the Big Ten?
I'll go Michigan first in the Big Ten. I think they're the most complete team. And finally, Nebraska is not a great football team, but it was a defense that at least was one of the best defenses in being able to stop the run this year. They kind of just ran right through them. J.J. McCarthy's taken his game to another level. So I like Michigan in that conference. I don't buy Penn State. I think Penn State's a bunch of frauds. Wow. I think Penn State's going to be 10-2 when it's all said and done. They have no explosive plays on the offense. They're not running the ball well. They don't have elite receivers. I like their quarterback, but he's not a superstar right now in this point of his career, and he doesn't have the support. Like, I don't think they can score against Ohio State or Michigan. Like, they're going to be 10-2 once again this year. They got a great defense, but their offense lacks explosive plays. And they have to go on the road to Ohio State, and Michigan's just better than them. So Penn State will be 2-0 or 10-2 when it's all said and done. So I like Michigan out of the Big Ten. Pac-12, I like Oregon. I like Washington. USC doesn't have that dog in them. I think when push comes to shove, Oregon has shown me this year that they want to beat you down. USC, to me, does not have that feeling. They feel like they're a little bit soft. They're just happy to be out there. They're happy that they got Caleb, but they don't got that dog in them, man. They don't. We saw this week versus Colorado. You watch both tapes. Oregon wanted to embarrass Colorado. Oregon wanted to make them quit. USC doesn't have that. And when if you want to win a championship, you have to have that dog-like mentality. USC doesn't, Oregon does, so I give them the advantage.
He's Aaron Murray, does a great job. ESPN, Sirius, The Volume. You catch him everywhere, the former Georgia quarterback. Aaron, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this as always.
Appreciate you. Have a great week.
We continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio, continuing to go through the college football season. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in the former Georgia quarterback. Big matchup this weekend, Georgia up against Kentucky. And you can find Aaron Murray all over the place, ESPN, Sirius, and The Volume. And he's kind enough to join us right now. Aaron, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
Good, man. Appreciate you. We're in the thick of a very entertaining college football season. It is, it's wide open, man, which is exciting. It kind of feels closer to the NFL product. I know there's a lot of college football fans that kind of are a little disturbed with some of the direction we're going with NIL, the transfer portal, yada, yada, yada. But I don't think you can complain with how exciting each Saturday has been because of some of these new rule changes. And I think the future for college football is pretty bright. So it should be another great weekend of some great action.
Yeah, it's so funny where we're at with your program because we know they're the kings of college football. And now it's not just win, you got to win with style points. And that hasn't been the case with South Carolina and Auburn. When you look at Georgia right now through the first few weeks of the season, where's your confidence level at with them?
Not as high as it's been for the past couple of years. And I think that's kind of the sentiment among the Georgia faithful right now. There are some question marks. And I guess I'll give one big excuse. And Kirby kind of hit this coming out of camp. They had a really bad camp in the sense of not like it wasn't competitive or they didn't feel good about their players, but they got banged up. It was a very, and that's the one thing that you always talk about with elite teams. Like, what will hold a team back from winning a championship that has the type of talent that Georgia has? The first thing is injuries. Can you stay healthy? And, that will derail a season right away. And it hasn't yet. I mean, they're still 5-0. They're undefeated. They're finding ways to win football games, but they've yet to be healthy.
All right, well, let's start our first ever overreaction, proper reaction. The Bengals are used to slow starts, losing their first 2 games last year and starting 5-4 in 2021 before making that run to the Super Bowl. However, this year does feel a little bit different for the 1-3 Bengals, as Joe Burrow is 27th in the league in passing yards and 28th with just 2 touchdown passes. It's very odd to see these scores in like 50 yards passing at halftime. It's nuts. So overreaction, proper reaction, the Bengals are in danger of missing the playoffs.
Yeah, they are, and here's why. Because for the next 2 weeks, they have to win. And I don't think Arizona is this phenomenal team, but they've been in every game that they've played this year. And the week after that, it's Seattle. And right now, Seattle's just better than the Cincinnati Bengals. So they have to win these next 2 weeks to get to 3-3. And even if they do so, then coming out of that bye, because they have a bye week in week 7, they're at San Francisco, and they have the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. This is a brutal start for the Bengals. It's a slow start. I know last year they were able to fight out of an 0-2 hole and still get to the AFC Championship game. But when you look at their schedule the rest of the way, it's Arizona, it's Seattle, it's San Francisco, it's Buffalo, the Texans, the Ravens on a short week in Baltimore on Thursday Night Football, the Steelers, the Jaguars, the Colts, the Vikings, the Steelers, Kansas City, and Cleveland. There's a lot of tough games there, and they're already behind the 8 ball at 1-3. So for me to expect everything to go perfect, them to get back to the playoffs, I can't believe I'm saying this, but right now I would say that the Bengals are going to miss the playoffs, and they're in danger of doing so. So I believe that's a proper reaction.
Well, the Vikings have won 13. The Vikings won 13 games last year, but started 0-3 this year before squeaking out a win over the winless Panthers on Sunday. Kirk Cousins, however, he is rolling. He's on pace for over 5,000 yards and nearly 50 touchdowns.
Isn't that crazy?
I know. Well, I mean, after, 3 weeks or 2 weeks, he was on pace for 6,000 yards. It was nuts.
Yeah, he had over 700 yards passing the first 2 weeks of the season.
Crazy. Last week.
And they were 0-2.
Last week, we heard his wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, vent frustration about trade talks involving Cousins and other players on the team.
Tired of people saying, we're looking into next season, all of the trades and stuff like that. We're focused still on this season. We have a lot more games to go, and we have a lot more things to accomplish this season.
So overreaction, proper reaction, the Vikings should trade Kirk Cousins.
I think it's very easy for people to say trade Kirk Cousins, because we look at it and we go, oh, the Vikings are going nowhere. Kirk Cousins in the final year of his deal. So just ship him on out and get what you could get for him, because you probably don't want to bring him back next year. But with that being said, if this year ends up being a disaster, and once Kirk Cousins gets traded, you're not getting Justin Jefferson the ball, and the backup quarterback is incapable of getting Justin Jefferson the numbers that he wants, then maybe Justin Jefferson gets tired with the organization, and Justin Jefferson says, oh, you didn't pay me the previous offseason, I'm going to play this out, and then eventually a few years from now, move on from your team. So because of that reason, and that reason only, I would say the Vikings should not trade Kirk Cousins. So when you say the Vikings should trade Kirk Cousins, I believe that is an overreaction.
After making the playoffs as a rookie, Mac Jones has regressed in New England and has been benched multiple times the past 2 seasons for Bailey Zappi. Now the Pats are 1-3, just lost 2 defensive stars, and Jones has already thrown 4 picks in just 146 pass attempts. So overreaction, proper reaction, the Patriots should draft a quarterback in the first round of the 2024 draft.
Oh, that's a proper reaction right now, because the Patriots are going to be a bad team this year. And I said going into this season that I didn't believe in my football team. And I look at this squad, just where are they great? Even on defense. And now they just lost Christian Gonzalez and Matthew Judon. And we don't know when they're going to return. That defense wasn't great. That defense was good. And a lot of times, and you'll learn this about me, that's my biggest gripe. People say everything's great. Something could be good and not great. That Patriots defense is just good. Maybe very good, but it isn't great. And then offensively, yeah, you bring in Bill O'Brien this year, but where are the weapons for Mac Jones? And Mac Jones has had horrible decision-making. But you look at the offensive weapons, like Ezekiel Elliott's getting a ton of carries. Right? You have Ramondre Stevenson, who's solid. But then when you look at the wide receivers, there's nothing that intimidates you. Kendrick Bourne doesn't intimidate you. Devontae Parker doesn't intimidate you. There's no wide receivers here that make you shake in your boots if you're a defender. So this team's going to be picking in the top 10. And if you're picking in the top 10 after wasting the first 3 years of Mac Jones, and let's say you have the 5th pick or the 6th pick in the draft, whatever it may be, and a Michael Penix Jr. is there, Shedeur Sanders is there. I don't know if Drake May is still going to be available. Clearly, you'd love to get the number 1 overall pick and get Caleb Williams. The Patriots won't be that bad. If there's a quarterback there that you say I have to have and I have to covet, you draft that quarterback, but Bill needs to learn this time around, because I do believe Bill Belichick will still be the coach, that you have to put your young quarterback in a better position to succeed, and you don't have Tom Brady anymore. And he failed to recognize that with Mac Jones, with the garbage at offensive coordinator last year, and then this year getting an OC, but not getting actual wide receivers for Mac to throw the football to. So the Patriots draft a QB in the first round of the 2024 draft. Yeah, if they're in the top 10, it's something you have to consider. That's a proper reaction.
So 5th-round rookie wideout Puka Nacua is lighting it up for the Rams, reeling in a league-best 39 passes for 501 yards, which stands second in the NFL behind Justin Jefferson. On top of all that, the BYU alum's first touchdown reception was the game winner in OT last week in Indy. So overreaction, proper reaction, Puka Nacua will be a top 5 receiver in the NFL.
I love Puka Nacua. Love him. Love, 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 love. But a top 5 receiver in the NFL, that's an overreaction. Let's settle down a little bit, especially with Cooper Kupp coming back. Now, Puka Nacua will still be a force, but he's not going to be as dominant once Cooper Kupp gets back onto the field. A top 5 wide receiver. I know we're all delirious with the Puka Nacua love. Yeah, that's not going to end up happening.
All right, last one. Josh McDaniels, Stu's favorite coach. Actually, you know what? It's probably better if Stu reads this one because I want to get the opinion of his voice.
Oh, that's not nice.
That's
Look
very
at
not
Bully
nice from a Jets fan. Well, former Jets fan.
Chiefs, baby. Let's go AFC West.
At least Stu is loyal. I can't say the same for Samter.
All right, well, Josh McDaniels
Wow, you really sound depressed here.
is driving the
Hold on. Can we pick up the energy a little bit? Let's get the people going. This is a radio show. We got 3 minutes left. I need some energy from Stuart Kovacs, not... Oh, okay, we're here, Josh McDaniels.
Do my
the Raiders,
Bill Belichick
they suck,
impersonation.
Everything's terrible. The Raiders suck. Like, a little energy, please.
Well, he is driving the Raiders, my Raiders, straight into the ground. After going 6-11 last year, the Raiders are now 1-3, and McDaniels keeps making terrible play calling decisions.
This is painful.
Yeah, it's bad. After Sunday's loss, fans called him for him to be fired, and defending rushing champion Josh Jacobs, which McDaniels refuses to utilize, kind of took a shot at McDaniels.
Yeah, man, stupid we do to ourselves. Just undisciplined football. This league is too competitive, and there's too many guys that's good out there to go in there and, and not do the little things right.
All right, Zach, so overreaction or proper reaction, McDaniels will be the first coach fired this season.
That's an overreaction. He should be, but I don't think Mark Davis is going to get rid of him this year. As bad as this is, I'm very sorry still. Like, I feel horrible saying this, but he's going to be back next year because they just paid John Gruden all that money because they, in like an idiotic fashion, gave him 10 years, $100 million on that contract, even though Gruden said if it didn't work out, he would give all the money back, and look how that ended up working. But Mark Davis kind of has that cheap tag associated to him. And with Brady now getting into the organization, I really do believe they're going to give McDaniels another year. So I don't think that's going to happen in season. So that's a overreaction from me. All righty, that is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Fun show today. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for calling, listening, and tweeting into the show. Big thanks to Michael Samter and Stuart Kovacs. And also have to give thanks to our 2 guests today, and Nico Collins from the Houston Texans. What a story they are at 2-2, and he's off to a tremendous start. Had over 150 yards receiving last week and had the 2 touchdowns, that 1 big reception of 50-plus yards. And also would like to thank Aaron Murray, who just joined us about 20 minutes ago, where he said Penn State is fraudulent this year. When I look at the Big Ten, I actually think Penn State's the second-best team. I think they're slightly better than Ohio State. Michigan is 1. And then a little mixed confidence with Georgia. Likes the quarterback in Carson Beck, but looks at the team this year and knows they're not as dominant as they've been the last 2 years. So fun show today. I'd like to thank each and every one of you, whether you're listening to us on the radio, Sirius XM, the Odyssey app, or interacting on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Have a great night, everybody. We out. Bye-bye.